See, we cannot make out what is going on inside a person's heart and what is his planning. You know, everyone has their own wish, and if they wanted to leave the party,
okay.
I mean, we've been hearing these stories that this is what something is going to happen, but it is not that we are going to run after them or our CM is going to request them. We've been telling them whatever problems or issues you have, we can have a word together sitting, you know. But since they are not showing up,
sir, will you agree that Shinde camp is calling the shots? Intikhab Farooqi sir, before I open this up, will you at least concede that they have the numbers, the other side?
See, unless and until they don't come and have a word face to face and show up their numbers,
okay,
we cannot say that who is more powerful. But yes, I'm sure that we have good numbers and
so
we will show up.
So Tushar Gupta, this is funny. They keep saying everything will be settled on the floor of the House, but it's not Uddhav Thackeray who's calling for a floor test or a confidence vote. It's the other side that is calling for a no trust vote. That is rather strange, Tushar Gupta. Was he so confident? He would have come out and said, test my confidence. Here I am. We are going to hold a confidence test.
Good evening, Rahul. How the high and mighty have fallen. Sanjay Raut and Uddhav Thackeray come across as those batsmen who have been stumped on a white ball. We began this whole trajectory by saying, oh, it's only a few MLAs. Then it came to, oh, the better half of the Shiv Sena MLAs are with Uddhav Thackeray. Then it came to threatening the MLAs. The Shiv Sena spokesperson here says they're hiding in Guwahati. Look at the statements made by Sanjay Raut. Their bodies will return. Tones won't do the job. We have to be violent against when one of the MLA's office was demolished. And the Shiv Sena spokesperson has the audacity to say they're hiding in Guwahati. Today he tells that if they had any problem, they should have stepped up to Uddhav Thackeray. Where was this concern when the cross-voting happened in the Rajya Sabha election and the MLC election? Clearly, Uddhav Thackeray was disconnected with the pulse of his own MLAs. Forget the public. And let's be honest, Rahul, Uddhav Thackeray is no longer calling the shots, not as the CM, not as someone running the government, and definitely as not someone leading the party. Today, all the cards, all the aces are with the Shinde camp. And when the floor test happens, and rest assured it's about to happen before 11 July, Uddhav Thackeray would be stumped again, realizing he doesn't have the numbers.
Sanjay Jha, let me bring you in on this point. Look, it's quite clear that there is no relief coming in the immediate from the Supreme Court, at least till the 11th of July, which means that the disqualification has been stayed, which means that these MLAs can actually vote. And given their stance right now, they've already said that they're going to vote out Uddhav Thackeray. Now, I want to ask you a simple question. He has lost his MLAs. They're not with him. What moral authority does he have to continue?
Rahul, there are 2 points here to consider. Number one, I agree with you that it appears that they have the numbers at the moment in Guwahati. But politically, constitutionally, those numbers have to be proven on the floor of the House. Now, I'll tell you the problem. The Supreme Court, by saying that now they have time till the 11th of July, basically by implication, and this is my understanding of the legal and the constitutional process, that because the disqualification issue gives them time till the 11th of July to respond, and after that the Supreme Court will pass a verdict. Then you have the issue that they have raised against the Deputy Speaker. Now all these matters are actually preconditions to having a verdict before you have a floor test. So I don't really think that there can be a floor test before the 11th of July. It will happen probably a week, 2 weeks, maybe. I don't know how long will it take, but it cannot, because you need a government. My second contention, and this is something that you may ask other panelists on your program as well, the problem with the Eknath Shinde camp is that they're saying that we are going to be the original Shiv Sena. I think they haven't understood the legality of this country. They can't, because if they will possibly face the anti-defection law, and they will probably have to merge with the Bharatiya Janata Party. So the issue of the Sena identity could come to naught. So really, I really don't know what they are waiting for at the moment, because they have no choice. They now have to be in Guwahati for quite a long time. And the only other option they have is to merge with the Bharatiya Janata Party, and then BJP and this
Sujata Pandey wants to come in on this point.
The governor and ask for a floor test.
Okay, Sujata Pandey.
I would like to.
1 second.
I would like to say to Mr. Sanjay Jha.
1 second.
First of all, it's been proven with the signatures, with the interviews, with all the clarifications that is coming out from the Shinde camp, that they have well over 37 MLAs, which makes them immune to the disqualification what Mr. Sanjay Jha was quoting on. So that's point number one. So, but you know, I would say that this Mahasangram of this Maha-political crisis of Maharashtra, you know, a landmark judgment still awaits. You know, it may be a first win for the Shinde camp, but I firmly believe that the people of Maharashtra are still looking for the real justice. And I tell you why. Because this uncertainty of the law and order situation, the political crisis still continues. The security concerns of the MLAs and their families still continues. The people of Maharashtra are still worried about that when the Shiv Sainiks will come on the street and when their cars will be vandalized. They don't know where to go to the offices or stop going to the offices, or when the trains will be vandalized. People of Maharashtra don't deserve this, Rahul. You know, there is a constitutional provision, there is an institutional provision. The governor is back now. He must take a suo motu and ask for the floor test for Uddhav Thackeray. A state like Maharashtra, which contributes the highest of the GDP, cannot be running under a minority government. Because people of Maharashtra have voted for those kind of government.
I would like to say, Sujata ji, why are they not coming? In case if they have their numbers, then they should come up.
1 minute, let her finish.
The confidence of its own MLA, and the chief minister is not bothered to resign. I mean, at least on the moral grounds, forget anything else. On the moral ground, he should now resign, because it's game up, it's game over for Uddhav Thackeray.
Well, that
Rahul,
is a
one
point.
quick point.
1 second. Mr. Sanjay Jha, let me ask you this question. The Supreme Court has provided security. And I'm asking you this question. The Supreme Court has assessed the problem. Can you believe this? You're talking about an emergency-like situation where MLAs are not going to be allowed to exercise their free will in India's democracy. And this, sir, should also concern the Congress party. You constantly talk about democratic values. You are supporting a party right now led by Uddhav Thackeray and his minions, who are going out there and threatening MLAs who have legitimately... 1 minute. One second, Mr. Farooqi, please.
Calling them kachra. Rahul, calling our elected representative as kachra. Calling them, calling for
I would like to tell her that why...
1 second.
Why? In case
Mr. Farooqi, please, don't force me to lower your fade. I'm not asking you that question. I'll come to you. I'm asking Mr. Jha that question. The Congress party talks ad nauseum about democracy. Your leader goes and sits in Oxford and talks about India's democracy, the health of India's democracy. Your own ally, sir, Mr. Jha, is threatening his own MLAs with dire consequences through his minions. And the Supreme Court is left spending valuable taxpayer money, which could be used anywhere else, to provide these people security. Should they be scared of exercising their democratic right, Mr. Jha?
Rahul, you have asked a very valid question. I would like to say with full responsibility on your channel, a very popular program, no form of violence, any kind, not even a threat, not even an assumed threat, has to be permitted in a civilized society. That has to be condemned, and it is the responsibility of Mr. Uddhav Thackeray's government today.
No, it's not. One second. Your views count for very little. One second.
Priyanka Gandhi condemned it.
Yes, that's the question. That's a very good question. Today at a press conference. 1 minute. Today at a press conference, Mr. Jha, Rahul Gandhi, standing with 16 other opposition party leaders, was saying that the president's election this time is an ideological fight between nafrat and democracy, inclusive democracy. I didn't hear him condemn, like you are condemning, Uddhav Thackeray and his minions and his generals, or call them what you want to, for issuing death threats to their own MLAs who are exercising powers that are given to them by the constitution of this country. Why are you being selective?
Rahul, I would like to tell you
let me answer you. I don't know why are people interrupting. I'll just take 30 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, take a deep breath, chill, relax. The program is not yet over. So simple point, Rahul, before I answer that question once again emphatically, I think your panelists are not aware of the laws of this country. If the 2/3 want to split the party, they will also have to split the legislators, not just the legislators, but the entire party itself, which I don't think is going to happen. So I don't think they know the law before they come here and make these very presumptuous and preposterous statements. But to answer your question, I completely agree. And I'll repeat it again. Mr. Uddhav Thackeray's government should not allow any violence on the streets, not just because
Why is
Mumbai
Rahul Gandhi silent on this issue? Why is Rahul Gandhi silent on this issue? This is a black day. And remember, the threat was issued when the country was marking. One second, Farooqi Saab.
People have been working.
1 second, Farooqi Saab. Just give me 30 seconds, please. I implore you, I beg you. The threat was issued on the day the country was marking yet another anniversary of the emergency, viewers.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So you please tell me, Sanjay Jha, is it right for Rahul Gandhi to be quiet? I want you to listen to what Rahul Gandhi said today. Let's play it out. Let's play it out. No, this is very important. This is a moment of inflection. The opposition wants to create in our minds a feeling that they defend democracy, that they are the only ones who are standing up and fighting for it. They are the alternative to a fascist BJP. This is what Rahul Gandhi says day in and day out. He says this at every platform, including today. This is what he says. Listen, viewers.
ये विचारधारा की लड़ाई है। यशवंत सिन्हा जी के साथ सारा का सारा ऑपोजिशन है। दो अलग-अलग विचारधाराओं की लड़ाई है। एक तरफ नफरत और दूसरी तरफ भाईचारा और देश की भावना।
Bhaichara and nationalism on one side versus, you heard it, viewers, not from my mouth, but Rahul Gandhi's mouth, versus hatred. Now, how is it, Sanjay Jha, that Rahul Gandhi is counseling all of us to believe this and saying that he stands with Bhaichara, shares power with a fascist in one state, which is Maharashtra, and a casteist in another state, that is Tamil Nadu? You tell me this.
Well, you know, Rahul, you told me about the taxpayers' money being abused. I want to tell you the biggest taxpayers' money fraud going on in broad daylight is an Operation Lotus that the BJP is running in Surat and in Guwahati. But the fundamental question is that the BJP has been spreading.
What proof do you have that the BJP is paying? 1 minute, let me bring in Devendra Pai, Sujata Pandey, and senior editor of Swarajya magazine. What proof do you have that the BJP is bankrolling this? What proof do you have? You can have a feeling, but what proof do you have, Sanjay Jha? And why are you changing? Why are you changing the goalposts? Let the BJP do what they want to. You already call them a fascist party. How does that answer the question I'm asking you tonight?
Well, Rahul, let me tell you, the opposition should be smart. They should not fall into the BJP trap. The BJP has divided India. I think everyone who even votes for the BJP knows how socially fractured India has become.
Sir,
the communal temperature is rising high.
You're not answering my question. My question was straight.
Following the British
is Rahul Gandhi morally on strong footing when he shares power with a leader who has a fascist outlook, who has said
there has been no violence in Maharashtra.
Of course there has been violence.
There has been no violence.
There has been violence. I can show you pictures of violence. I can show you brazen intimidation. I can show you and play out Sanjay Raut's comment.
I'm saying that he's assured people there will be no violence.
There is already violence happening. There is already violence there. I'm showing you violence. No, 1 second. I'll show you shots of violence in just about 30 seconds. Nizam bhai, let's pull them out. 1 minute. Let me bring in political analyst Devendra Pai and Mr. Intikhab Farooqi back into this. Devendra Pai, your response on this issue of threats that are being issued.
Before I move on to that, there are so many similarities between Rahul Gandhi and Aditya Thackeray. I mean, you were speaking about love. Even Aditya Thackeray gave out a statement saying that हम प्यार से जीतेंगे. यार, एक तरफ आपके पार्टी के राज्यसभा MP बोलते हैं हम 40 मुर्दे लेके आएंगे और ब्लैक मैजिक कराएंगे कामाख्या में जाके, और उसकी दूसरी तरफ आप प्यार की बातें कैसे कर सकते हो? बोथ आर डायनास with absolutely no grassroots connect and have been parachuted as the top leaders of that party. So basically, there are more than one common thing. Last but not least, we should not forget that because of Rahul Gandhi, Congress lost Himanta Biswa Sharma, and because of Aditya Thackeray and Uddhav Thackeray, the Shiv Sena is losing Eknath Shinde as a grassroots level leader. Secondly, I would like to say that, what is this victory sign which Aditya Thackeray was showing yesterday? क्या जीते हो आप लोग? कुछ नहीं जीते हो. सुप्रीम कोर्ट में भी हार गए. और आप बोलते हो दगाबाज कभी जीत नहीं सकते. दगा दिया किसने? महाराष्ट्र की जनता.
Mr. Farooqi, respond please.
Rahul,
see, as what Mr. Rahul is speaking, I mean Mr. Devendra is speaking, I would like to tell him that the way he's saying, so much work Mr. Aditya Thackeray has done when the trees in RAs were cutting down. You know, in RA, when there was on the lake side, there was a difficulty for people to walk on the corners on the street side. I mean, so if I count you the numbers, the number of work we have done. Rahul, Aditya Thackeray as a new leader of Shiv Sena, and all the other parties. I mean,
Mr. Farooqi,
One second, let's not speak over him. One second, Mr. Gupta, 1 second. Let Mr. Farooqi finish. Mr. Farooqi, the point is not about how much work he has done. The point is that his own MLAs are saying that he is not good enough. That should concern you. That concerns Uddhav Thackeray. Why has he moved out of Varsa? Why is he moved out of the chief minister's bungalow then?
See, Rahul, that is their own wish that they wanted to leave and go. You know, I mean, that is their own choice. I mean, we cannot force anyone.
If a political party is growing, if a political party is doing well, who wants to leave?
You know,
the only implosions that are taking place are in the Congress today. Now they're in the Shiv Sena because there's something wrong. Right or wrong?
See, I like to tell you that it is their own choice. It is not that, you know, you can stop someone from going to any other place. It is their choice. They want to go to some other place.
Let me play out Sanjay Raut's bite. No, Mr. Farooqi, I'm playing out Sanjay Raut's bite. Enough of a sham. I am showing you visuals of vandalism. Your own leaders today are going to the homes of these particular and offices of these particular rebel MLAs, demolishing them, beating up, threatening. Supreme Court is stepping in to give security. Listen in to Sanjay Raut. Please listen in. Please, sir, I'm not saying it. Sanjay Raut is saying it. Please listen in, Mr. Farooqi. Pay attention.
कहा ना, ये कानून की लड़ाई है, कानून से होगी. रास्ते की लड़ाई रास्ते पर सड़क पर हो सकती है, हो जाएगी. अब तक शिवसैनिक सड़क पर नहीं उतरे हैं. चाहे कितने भी लोगों को आप खरीद लो, दबाव डालो, लेकिन कानून की लड़ाई, कागज की लड़ाई और सड़क की लड़ाई दोनों में हम जीत जाएंगे.
कानून की लड़ाई, सड़क की लड़ाई. And he says street fight will happen on the streets, and it will happen. Beyond that, viewers, he's also made, and there is another soundbite of another leader today who has come out and made a vile comment where he says very clearly that you have to step out of the airport. The moment you do, we will show you. Mr. Farooqi, is this the way?
Today, where they are and in what position they have, they are ministers of cabinet and some are MLAs, ministers. You know, the level they have reached is only because of the Shivseniks. They worked so hard for them, and behind them was the face of Balasaheb Thackeray and Uddhav Saheb Thackeray and the name of Shiv Sena. And if you see today,
Mr. Gupta, okay,
Mr.
so these
Farooqi
are ingrates.
is making some very preposterous statements, Rahul. He's saying that these ministers who are hiding in Guwahati have reached a certain level because of Uddhav Thackeray. Mr. Farooqi, how did Uddhav Thackeray become the CM? It was because of Devendra Fadnavis and the BJP. The mandate was never for Shiv Sena, NCP and the Congress. The mandate was for BJP and the Shiv Sena, with BJP getting 2/3 of the seats, not Uddhav Thackeray. So let's not kid ourselves by saying Uddhav Thackeray has done some ministers a favor. If today Uddhav Thackeray has been able to stitch an alliance, he owes it to Devendra Fadnavis and what he's done to Devendra Fadnavis by backstabbing the BJP. Number two, you are saying that Aditya Thackeray has done some great work with RA Forest and all that. Please, for the love of God, stop being proud about disrupting an infrastructure project That would have made
Mr. Gupta,
millions
that's
of
out of the
lives in Mumbai
syllabus.
better.
Forget about that. We are not assessing the work done by Mr. Uddhav Thackeray. The problem is not.
Done, Rahul. There is no work done.
One second, Mr. Gupta. The problem stems from within the Shiv Sena.
Absolutely.
They are the ones who are passing a no confidence motion against their leader. In the United Kingdom, viewers, Prime Minister Johnson just faced one from his own party. He did not threaten those MPs with dire consequences. Listen right now to what Subhash Desai of the Shiv Sena has had to say. Watch this.
जैसे कोई ना कोई दिन वो यहाँ मुंबई में आएंगे तो उनके जो साथ में है उसमें से आधे से ज़्यादा जल्दी शिवसेना भवन में आकर के दाखिल हो जाएंगे और बाकी जो है उनको एयरपोर्ट से बाहर निकलने नहीं दिया जाएगा। शिवसेना इतना विशाल संगठन है कि पूरे एयरपोर्ट का घेराव 24 घंटे, 48 घंटे, 72 घंटे, आप बोलो उतने घंटों तक घेराव करके बैठने की क्षमता सिर्फ शिवसेना की।
So viewers, the Shiv Sena says we're going to hold democracy hostage in an airport. This is what Rahul Gandhi today is supporting by giving support to Uddhav Thackeray. This is what Uddhav Thackeray believes is democracy, viewers. I just drew you the example of Boris Johnson, who is facing a similar rebellion. His MPs said, nothing doing, we don't want you to continue, you're a liar. You lied to the public. In Parliament, a vote was held. It so happened that Johnson won, not by a big margin, but he tested himself. Here, Uddhav Thackeray is running from a test, and Mr. Farooqi tells us, hold the floor test, because, viewers, they are confident that the MLAs will not be allowed to vote on the floor of the assembly because they will be held hostage at an airport. This is what it's come down to. This is what it's come down to. Do you deserve this? You elected these MLAs to help you, to work for you, to articulate your point. Mr. Farooqi, do you justify Desai? What Mr. Desai said? Yes, no. Yes, no.
He has no answer.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you clearly.
Can I step in?
There is a mistake going on here.
It's not a mistake, sir. Don't pretend that you can't hear me. Don't pretend. You need to answer. Mr. Farooqi, Desai says we will surround these MLAs. We will not allow them to exit the airport. We lay siege. Do you support this?
We are waiting. We are.
Rahul,
Viewers,
Rahul,
I'm leaving it at this. I think we have our answer. Sometimes silence speaks more than what anyone can actually articulate in words. Democracy, the threat to democracy is writ large. Judge the actions of those who claim that they are the defenders of democracy, viewers, against their political positioning. That's it. Rahul Gandhi cares about democracy in BJP-ruled states, doesn't care about democracy in Congress ally-ruled states. It's as simple as that. And that is shocking. That is shocking. Viewers, we move on to another shocking story. A Times Now super exclusive. The Supreme Court has hinted at a massive conspiracy hatched through a devious stratagem to implicate Modi in the Gujarat 2002 riot cases. On Friday, the Supreme Court has said that witnesses were coached, that they were tutored into signing affidavits that would suggest that Modi was directly involved. Some of them misrepresented facts voluntarily. They lied. But the Supreme Court stopped short of naming those beyond self-styled activist Teesta Setalvad. Neither has the Supreme Court elaborated on who was behind Teesta Setalvad. Now Times Now has accessed, viewers, an HRD Ministry probe report submitted to the Gujarat High Court in February 2019. The findings point at an allegedly inappropriate nexus between the UPA government and Teesta Setalvat's trust, the Sabrang Trust. The report says the then UPA government had given a grant of rupees 1.4 crores to Setalvat's trust. The grant was approved despite objections raised by the NCRT, which said that Teesta's NGO was ineligible for the funds. Can you believe it, viewers? Her NGO was ineligible, did not qualify to receive taxpayer money that was being given to her by the UPA in the form of a grant, 1.4 crores. The money was later used to print textbooks that were part of the curriculum in Gujarat and Maharashtra. The problem was that the textbooks were full of corrosive communal hate against the Hindu community. That is what was concluded by the report submitted by the HRD probe panel, 3-member HRD probe panel. How do we know all this? Because the HRD ministry under NDA in 2016 submitted a report that brought out the truth. What did this probe panel say? Let me now go through the terms, viewers. First charge, it said that from the very beginning, the applicant Sabrang Trust, Khoj, is ineligible to make an application in HRD grant was wrongly handed out. Applicant director Sabrang Trust, Khoj, is capable of hatred-filled, disharmony-spreading, ill-will generating, enmity-creating, explosive writings. Yes, viewers. Section 153A and 153B may be invoked to proceed against the director of Sabrang Trust, Khoj, which is Teesta Setalvat. This was flagged by the HRD probe panel. The Teesta UPA 1.4 crore irregular handshake was decoded by the HRD probe panel. The report was submitted to the court. Now, viewers, some very big questions arise, and I want to go straight across to Madhav Das Gopalakrishnan. Madhav Das Gopalakrishnan is with us from the news pit. Madhav, very serious. Sibbal, who was the HRD then minister, was giving 1.4 crores of public money, your money, my money, taxpayer money, to Teesta Setalvat, despite the fact that the NCRT had said that her NGO was ineligible. What do you believe was the compulsion that led Mr. Sibbal to give this money out?
Well, Rahul, obviously there will be all sorts of initiations that would be made as far as Teesta Setalvat and the Congress party itself are concerned, and what really was the need for this money to be given, bypassing the normal procedures. Now, I just want to very quickly take our viewers through the operative portion of this particular document that we have accessed, because it talks about how the informant applied to the MHRD complaining about the educational program of the Sabrang Trust, to which a committee of 3 persons comprising of Avijit Bhattacharya, Gaya Prasad and Shri S.A. Bari was formed. It goes further to say that these are the following findings: that from the very beginning the applicant is ineligible to make any application, and hence all money disbursed by the Ministry of HRD has been wrongly done, for which the concerned officials thereof cannot escape accountability, responsibility and culpability for this act. So this is very, very significant. This paragraph in itself says that there was some kind of nexus, some kind of wrongdoing, because of which those officials who actually sanctioned this cannot escape accountability, responsibility and culpability, given that it is ineligible to make any application. Secondly, very important, also says that the applicant director is capable of hatred-filled, disharmony-spreading, ill-will generating, enmity-creating, explosive writings, for which sections 153A, 153B can or may be invoked to proceed against the director. With these words, this committee sums up its inquiry report. So 2 very, very strong worded findings as far as this entire report is concerned. concerned, something the High Court has also taken cognizance of, which raises a very serious question as to what was the motivation behind this kind of, the rules being bypassed and the money being given to the Sabrang Trust of Teesta Setalvad. And really, will those in power at that time come out and now set the record straight?
Well, we know that the Supreme Court, viewers, and I'm going to put out those quotes of the Supreme Court on your screens. Thanks, Madhav. Those quotes tell us that the petition was devoid of merits filed to keep the pot boiling. It drew a link to those who kept the pot boiling, and one of those individuals is Teesta Setalvad, who has been arrested subsequently on the back of this Supreme Court judgment. Now, viewers, we are connecting the dots. She kept the pot boiling, but who was instigating her to do so? This quid pro quo, alleged quid pro quo that we have been able to expose by bringing out the report of the HRD ministry itself, that was written by a 3-member panel, probe panel, suggests that it was the UPA. And we have Rais Pathan also with us, who was working with Teesta Setalvad for a very long time, got disillusioned and decided to break away from her, joining us on this show. So is Dr. Sudhanshu Trivedi of the BJP. He's a member of parliament and the national spokesperson. Sushil Pandit, A.N. Samsheer of the left, Sanjay Jha and Danish Qureshi, political analyst. I want to first go across very quickly to Mr. Rais Pathan. Mr. Pathan, how did Teesta Setalvad, in your view, allegedly falsify affidavits of Zakia Jafri? उन्होंने ये affidavits कैसे falsify किए, कैसे बनाया ये सब?
ये बिल्कुल 100% सच है, और एफिडेविट जितने भी वो बनाया करती थी तो वो सारे एफिडेविट इंग्लिश में हुआ करते थे। जितने भी विक्टिमों के उन्होंने एफिडेविट बनाए वो सारे के सारे इंग्लिश में हुआ करते थे। और दूसरी बात ये है कि जो एफिडेविट उनके होते थे वो एफिडेविट की कॉपी उन्होंने कभी किसी विक्टिम को दी नहीं उन्होंने, और उसको उन्होंने ये कह के कि अभी आप लोगों को ज़रूरत नहीं है, जब आपका केस चलने पर आएगा तो हम आपको एफिडेविट दे देंगे। और जो आपने हमें लिखवाया था, क्योंकि एफिडेविट बनाने से पहले हफ्तों पहले या 10 दिन पहले वो आके डायरी में लिख के लेके जाया करती थी उनसे पूछ के। अब वो एफिडेविट में वही चीज़ें होती थी या नहीं होती थी वो उन लोगों को, विक्टिमों को मालूम ही नहीं होता था। ये बात जब पता चली जब वो एसआईटी के अंदर और नानावटी कमीशन में जो इंक्वायरी कमीशन था उसके अंदर गए, तो वो जो एफिडेविट जो थी वो वहाँ पर एफिडेविट से जो उनका स्टेटमेंट था वो मैच नहीं कर रहा था कहीं से भी। तो उन लोगों ने फिर कहना शुरू करा कि हमारी एफिडेविट में हमने जो बताया था वो तो है नहीं, बल्कि उसके अगेंस्ट में दूसरा कुछ लिखा हुआ है। तब इनसे बोला हमने कि भाई आपने जो एफिडेविट करा है, और ये जो कह रहे हैं जब एसआईटी में गए थे तो ये कह रहे हैं कि वो वहाँ पर अलग है। और कोर्ट के अंदर भी ऐसी मामला हुआ, जैसे कि मामला अभी उसका नरोडा गाँव का है। नरोडा गाँव के अंदर जब कोर्ट में उनसे पूछा गया, वहाँ पर एक महिला थी मदीना बीवी, उससे पूछा गया कि आपके साथ में रेप हुआ, तो उसने कहा बिल्कुल नहीं। तो कहा कि आपकी एफिडेविट में है ये कि आपके साथ में रेप हुआ? तो उसने कहा बिल्कुल एफिडेविट झूठी है और इसमें मुझे कुछ बताया नहीं गया। तो कहा कि साइन आपके हैं? तो उन्होंने ये कहा कि साइन और नोटरी हमारी कराई गई, लेकिन हमको ये कहा गया कि इसके अंदर ये चीज़ कुछ भी लिखी हुई नहीं है, जो आपने बताया वही है, और उसकी कॉपी भी हमें नहीं दी गई। तो इस तरह से हमने ये सवाल उठाया 2008 में। और जकिया जाफरी जो हैं खुद, जकिया जाफरी भी पढ़ी लिखी नहीं है जी, उनकी भी जो उनकी भी जो एफिडेविट है उनको भी खुद को नहीं मालूम कि उनकी एफिडेविट में क्या लिखा हुआ था।
ठीक है, मैं आपसे पूछना चाहता हूं, यू हैव वर्कड वेरी क्लोजली, आप तीस्ता जी के सहयोगी थे। मैं आपसे ये पूछना चाहता हूं, उनको ऑलमोस्ट 2.5 करोड़ मिले हैं यूपीए सरकार से। Why was she given this money by Mr. Sibbal's ministry despite her trust, जबकि उनका ट्रस्ट इनएलिजिबल था? ये ऐसी क्यों मेहरबानी की गई? 1.5 करोड़, सॉरी 1.5 करोड़ दिए, क्यों दिए? इनएलिजिबल ट्रस्ट था तभी भी दिए, क्यों? आप क्या समझते हैं?
नहीं, उस वक्त इनको तो उन्होंने, क्योंकि वो पूरी तरह से कांग्रेस की सपोर्ट थी इनको हर तरह से, इनके एक ट्रस्ट तो है नहीं, इनके तो कई ट्रस्ट थे, तो वो उसको एडजस्टमेंट किसी और ट्रस्ट में किया गया था।
अच्छा।
और ये सिटीजन फॉर जस्टिस एंड पीस, ये दंगा हुआ 2002 फरवरी में, इनका जो सिटीजन फॉर जस्टिस एंड पीस जो है ये अप्रैल में जो है
किस आधार
रजिस्ट्रेशन
पे ये
हुआ
सब
है।
कह रहे हैं कि उनके ताल्लुकात थे और ये सब किस सपोर्ट था, किस आधार पे आप कह रहे हैं राइस साहब?
बिल्कुल, और उस वक्त की लेफ्ट ने भी दिया था इनको पैसा
उनको दिया
आगे
था।
बिंद्रा करार थी,
Brinda Karat bhi. So all these people. Okay, now 1 second. Let's open this up. The left is also represented. The Congress is here also represented. Sanjay Jha, we know from the Supreme Court's own judgment that Teesta Setalwad was keeping the pot boiling. What we didn't know till now is at whose behest she kept that pot boiling. And Rais Khan says it was at the Congress's behest. She was working in tandem with the Congress to fix Modi. Mr. Jha, isn't this shocking? Why shouldn't those who were also her patrons, fine, the puppets have been jailed, but what about the patrons? Should they also not be jailed?
Well, Rahul, is very interesting. I read the Supreme Court verdict, and I also want to tell you what the Supreme Court said earlier, right? This is the same Supreme Court of India that said that the Gujarat government was like a modern day Nero, and we all know that Nero fiddled while Rome burned. And we all know who the Supreme Court was alluding towards. Point number two, why
how
did
do
the
you know?
Supreme Court,
No, don't put words in the mouth of the
several
Supreme Court, especially not on this show, because I don't want to be held up in contempt. First of all, it was an obiter dicta. It was an observation that was made. It was a sweeping observation. They didn't name Mr. Modi. And by that logic, sir, by that logic, Rajiv Gandhi rationalized the 1984 riots. There were several riots in different Congress-ruled states over many years. Should, therefore, the same point be made against every Congress Prime Minister and Chief Minister?
Well, let me tell you, the Supreme Court did not make a comment on Rajiv Gandhi, but the very important
Naturally,
point
because there were no cooked up, obviously there were no cooked up affidavits to put Rajiv Gandhi in the dock.
Why? No, 1 minute. Why did the Supreme Court shift several cases related to the riots out of Gujarat? Because they did not trust the administration of Mr. Modi.
That's okay. Despite that, the Supreme Court, that should make it doubly in our minds. Then it should make it doubly in our minds. No, 1 second. 1 second.
The culture of
okay, 1 second. Let me bring in Dr. Trivedi. Dr. Trivedi, the matter was shifted out. He was called Nero. That is what Sanjay Jha is saying. Why are you pointing fingers at us? They are clearly disappointed by what the Supreme Court has said. Dr. Trivedi.
And by the way, Mr. Trivedi knows that Mr. Vajpayee was absolutely
Rahul,
embarrassed.
I would like to further add what Mr. Sanjay Jha has said.
In 2002, the famous Raj Dharma statement. Trivedi ji, जरा वो Raj Dharma statement को टिप्पणी कर दीजिएगा. तो वाजपेयी जी ने मोदी जी को कहा था.
Dr. Trivedi needs to speak. Please let him speak.
सब बताता हूँ.
Yes.
सब बताता हूँ. Everything I will speak. First of all, I would like to say that what Mr. Sanjay Jha is saying, I would like to further add. What happened, the SIT was not instituted by the Supreme Court. It was asked by an NGO. And Supreme Court asked the Gujarat government, and it was on the part of Gujarat government, if they have decided, they could have stopped. But Gujarat government said, okay, we are ready for SIT. SIT by whom? By Supreme Court, by all the officers outside Gujarat. And it is under the strict observance of the Supreme Court, because we were clear कि कुछ भी ऐसा नहीं है. That's why on this issue again I would like to remind, sir, वो 2002 का जो आप कहते हैं ना राजधर्म, जरा जाके वो वीडियो देख लीजिएगा. Modi ji is sitting on the left side of Vajpayee ji, and then Vajpayee ji said कि भाई राजधर्म का पालन होना चाहिए. Then Modi ji said वही तो मैं कर रहा हूं. And next sentence of Vajpayee ji, मुझे विश्वास है ये वही कर रहे हैं. गायब. इसी को डॉक्टर ट्रुथ कहते हैं. यानी पूरे स्टेटमेंट को कैसा आपने हाफ निकाला और अपने मन से यूज किया. And the truth which is exposed by the Supreme Court observation on Teesta C. Talwar and several other NGOs. Sanjay ji, you remember in 2007 the famous statement which has started deteriorating the language or the dignity of the language in Indian politics. मौत के सौदागर, अब बिल्कुल साफ हो गया है शीशे की तरह कि मौत का सौदागर कौन था. Doctored stories, tutored witnesses, and then try to concoct with the money coming from government. अब बिल्कुल साफ है कि मौत का सौदागर कौन था और कोई नहीं था. जो मौत का सौदागर बोल रहे थे वही मौत के सौदागर थे. 1.4 करोड़ रुपए देकर उसी पैसे का यूज करके जो लोग मारे गए दुर्भाग्य से दंगों में उनकी भावनाओं का एक्सप्लॉयटेशन कर रहे थे ना.
Mr. Shamsher, quick response to Dr. Trivedi. We are being told now by Mr. Pathan that even Brinda Karat was contributing money. That's what he's saying. I'm not saying it, mind you.
Yeah, I'm quoting the Honorable Prime Minister Modi's statement from Germany. Emergency, a black spot on India's vibrant democracy. Now in India, emergency's version 2 is taking place. What's happened? Teesta Sajal is being arrested. On the same day, 75 June 25 emergency imposed. On 22 June 25, Teesta Sajal, an indefatigable human rights fighter, she has been arrested. She stands for human rights.
Sir, when
look, in India,
are you doubting the Supreme
fighting
Court?
for human rights is
Are you
becoming a
doubting
crime.
the Supreme Court?
Human rights is becoming a
yes,
crime.
human rights. She might have been in one avatar, but in another avatar, she was the murderer of human rights. She was trying to put a man into jail, frame him, a person who's elected by the public.
No, I am not believing that.
Him.
I am not believing that.
No, you may not believe it, the Supreme Court does. There is no one greater than the Supreme Court. If you have a problem with the Supreme Court, file a curative petition. No, 1 second. You can't sit here and today start suggesting the Supreme Court has not looked into the matter. It's not just the Supreme Court. Let me tell you, the SIT found him to be, and the SIT, the members of this SIT. 1 second, Mr. Shamsi, please don't speak over me, please. मेरी बात सुनिए. The SIT was appointed. The SIT was appointed at the behest of an NGO.
I am not making
the people of the SIT. 1 second. I will have to lower your favor. I'll have to lower your favor. Please don't speak over me. This is not right. Please. I'm pointing out a few facts. The facts are, viewers, and I want to remind Sanjay Jha of another brutal fact. The High Court of Delhi convicted Sajjan Kumar for his involvement in the 1984 killings. And we know that Sajjan Kumar enjoyed a productive stint and rose up the ranks of the Congress party. Who was patronizing him, sir? Mr. Jha?
Maya Kodani was convicted for 28 years.
So are you saying that two wrongs make a right? Are you saying two wrongs make a right?
She got acquitted much
you are
later.
The one who brought up. You are the one who brought up this angle.
No, but Maya Kodani was in Mr. Modi's cabinet.
I'm asking you, sir.
Maya Kodani was in Modi's
Did she not
cabinet.
go to jail? Did she not go to jail?
She did, because she was convicted by the courts.
Then, if she was, well, sir, then no one interfered in the judicial process. That means it's a robust process.
I want to ask you one question. Was nobody aware that she was
involved? You're talking about Nero fiddling. At least Nero was not promoting rioters.
Nobody was aware that she was involved in the massacre.
At least Nero was not promoting rioters. The Congress leadership was promoting rioters. And let me also tell you, the Gujarat High Court acquitted. 1 second. She was acquitted.
I apologize for 1984. Ask Mr. Trivedi to apologize.
No, 1 second, 1 second. Maya Kodani was acquitted by the Gujarat High Court subsequently.
I have.
Listen, Mr. Jha, you can cut it whichever way you want to.
BJP to accept their responsibility.
You can cut it whichever way you want to. You can cut it whichever way you want to, but you can't cut the facts. The facts are Maya Kodani by a lower court.
So was 2002.
Okay, sir, you can keep shouting over me. It's fine. There's no problem. You can keep yelling over me, you can keep shouting me down, but the facts speak for themselves. Sajjan Kumar, convicted, viewers, after several years, promoted by the Gandhi leadership, and they're talking about Neros. Just think about it. I've run out of time. I would have loved to come out to Mr. Pandit and, of course, Mr. Qureshi. Mr. Pandit, I'm personally apologizing to you and Mr. Qureshi both. I couldn't find the time to come out to you. Sorry about this. Please accept my apologies. I leave it at this. Navika Kumar coming up on the NewsHour.
Admiral Hari Kumar, thank you for joining.
रिश्ता और अनुभव महाराष्ट्र के साथ रहा है. शुरुआत से ही ये गठबंधन जो बनी है अघाड़ी की, ये अपने आप में ही विचलित हो चुकी है। ना सिद्धांत है, ना विचारधारा है, ना सोच है, ना आगे की कार्यशैली है। ये केवल सत्ता और कुर्सी पकड़ने की चिंता और भूख के आधार पर यह अघाड़ी बनी और इसलिए वो दरार जिसका संदर्भ अभी पवैया जी ने भी अपने वक्तव्य में दिया, वो दरार आज की दरार नहीं है। वो दरार जिस दिन से ये अघाड़ी बनी है तब से ये दरार उस दिन से स्थापित हो चुकी है। और जो बौखलाहट राज्यसभा चुनाव के बाद और अब विधान परिषद के चुनाव के बाद जिसका संदर्भ पवैया जी ने दिया, तो खलबली मच चुकी है। ना ये स्थिर है, ना वो स्थिर है, ना तीसरा दल स्थिर है। तो आपस में जब ना तालमेल है, ना एक विचारधारा है, ना एक सिद्धांत है, ना आपस में एक साथ चल के जनता का विकास करने की एक चिंता है, तो ये स्थिति जरूर उत्पन्न होगी। हमारी सोच और विचारधारा है केंद्र में स्थिर सरकार, प्रदेश में स्थिर सरकार।
The most pressing issues, the most informed minds, free and fair exchange. Converse India with Rahul Shivshankar.
The Shiv Sena, they're camping there under the leadership of Eknath Shinde, and getting in a bit of breaking news update, the TMC has now said that the BJP has always played cross bat. So that's another reaction, an allegation coming in from the TMC, just as has been said by the Congress and the Shiv Sena as well in the past. We have Kirti Azad joining us on the phone line. Mr. Azad, what do you make of this allegation coming in from the TMC this time around, saying that the BJP has always played cross?
So same way we find that जो modern
who is
that?
Well, what did they do in Madhya Pradesh?
But isn't it really directly related to, you know, the particular government's concern not being able to keep their flock together? BJP will use this as an opportunity, yes, if the Mahavikas Aghadi is unable to keep matters in their hands.
Correct. Money, ED, IT, NSA, they all can be used to BJP's advantage.
And how is that, Mr. Azad?
Haven't we seen it?
No, in this particular case, how is it that any of the agencies is being put to use as you're alleging?
Well, haven't you seen what has happened in the past? A few months ago? On the various leaders, and every time they can't convict anybody. You've seen approximately more than 3,000 cases by ED have been framed on lots of people.
So, Mr. Azad, are you implying that all of these
9%.
MLAs have decided to part ways under some sort of pressure?
Well, it's quite evident. It's very evident. What happened in Madhya Pradesh? Can you tell me that? Didn't they try the best in Bengal? Didn't they try the best in Rajasthan? Rajasthan, they almost had them.
Well, all parties involved, including the Congress and the Shiv Sena, currently in damage control mode, Mr. Azad. Let's see how this plays out. Too soon to really come to any sort of conclusions. I'll have to leave it at that. Thank you for joining us with that perspective. Let me go across to my colleague Vaishali, who's joining us from Surat. Vaishali, क्या जानकारी दे सकते हैं? कितने विधायक अंदर होटल में हैं? हमें क्या कंफर्म्ड है कि सारे शिवसेना के हैं?
जी बिल्कुल, जैसा आप देख रहे हैं, सवेरे कल रात से ही वो लोग यहाँ एयरपोर्ट पास की एक होटल में रुके हैं कल रात से ही, और आज सवेरे से ही सूरत के आप जो भी है मीडिया जगत के सारे लोग वहां पे पहुंचे हैं, और वहां पे जो जानकारी हम लोगों को अभी तक मिली है तो उसमें यही है कि ये जो सारे विधायक हैं वो 22 जो विधायक है वो सारे ही शिवसेना से जुड़े हुए हैं, और उनके नाम का लिस्ट भी जैसे मैं आपको भेज चुकी हूँ मतलब वो कहा जा सकता है कि वो सारे शिवसेना से ही जुड़े हुए हैं.
Two Sena and Netas are now being dispatched to get in touch with the roughly 30 rebel MLAs. Meanwhile, even as we speak, the chief of NCP, Sharad Pawar, along with his chief lieutenants, are there holding a press conference. We'll get to hear what the status of the NCP MLAs are. After all, most of the people who are believed to be holed up in the Gujarat resort are there from the Shiva Sena. Let me in fact go across to Arunil, who's joining us.
Mahavikas Aghadi, because they had 44. They had 44 MLAs compared to 106 plus 7 independents, 113 of the BJP. They had 44 and a chance to sit in power in government. They weren't complaining.
Mr. Fadnavis ji and Ajit Pawar ji, who took oath together as Chief Minister and Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra. After that, Shiv Sena went. So, listen, that time when BJP...
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Game of Thrones in Maharashtra has been on for a whole week now. MLAs rushing out of the state, their homes and offices vandalized, and acidic statements and jibes coming in from both sides. The state has seen it all. But today perhaps came the final blow for Uddhav Sena, a supreme setback, if you will. The top court stayed disqualification proceedings under further notice, which means at least until 11th of July when the next hearing happens in the top court. Uddhav Thackeray and his Aghadi partners cannot move to punish the rebels sitting in Guwahati. The Shinde camp gets 14 days to respond to the deputy speaker, which means till 12th of July evening, which is exactly what they had sought from the court. More time is what they wanted and more time is what they've got. The rebels also have put on record that they have support of 39 Sena MLAs, and that proves that the Uddhav Sena and the Aghadi government is in minority. Add to that the notice that has been sent to Deputy Speaker and the state to file an affidavit in the next 5 days and explain themselves. And most importantly, the Supreme Court has put the onus on the state to ensure protection of the rebels and their families. This after repeated instances of violence were reported from the state. Vandalism that the party's chief has failed to condemn. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this order was pronounced after heated arguments in the court that really went on for more than 2 hours. The Shinde camp argued against the disqualification notice, saying Deputy Speaker cannot decide on the disqualification when his own continuance is in doubt, because the motion to remove the speaker came in a day before the motion to disqualify the rebels. While Abhishek Manu Singhvi questioned the very reason why this case was being heard in the Supreme Court, but the court didn't really take the bait. Both sides, high-powered legal battery of lawyers, Rajiv Dhawan, Abhishek Manu Singhvi on behalf of the Maharashtra Speaker, as well as the Aghadi government. On the other side, Neeraj Kishan called for Eknath Shinde. Shinde's legal team was ready with precedents and arguments to counter them, but Uddhav Sena is still confident that they can beat a floor test. Low on numbers but high on optics seems to be the strategy for Uddhav Sena. Listen in to Aditya Thackeray when he reiterated his traitor jibe once again to the Shinde camp.
कॉन्फिडेंस जीत की तो पूरी है और प्यार भी पूरा है. जो दगेबाजी करते हैं वो कभी जीतते नहीं है, जो भाग के जाते हैं वो कभी जीतते नहीं है. फ्लोर टेस्ट से मुझे सबसे बड़ी टेस्ट यही है, अगर जो भी बागी है, जो भाग के गए हैं, जो खुद को रिबेलियन कह रहे हैं, रिबेलियन करना होता तो यहाँ हिम्मत से करते, राजीनामा देते, रिजाइन करते और सामने चुनाव के लिए खड़े रहते. मेरी बात पूरी होगी. दूसरी फ्लोर टेस्ट यही होगी कि मेरे सामने बैठे आंखों में आंखें डाल के बोले कि हमने क्या गलत किया.
Now, what gives Aditya Thackeray and the Sena loyalists this confidence that they will win? Because if you look at the numbers, they are only left with 15 or 16 MLAs. The Shinde camp numbers are rising and rising rapidly. 48 MLAs in all, and at least 39 of them are from the Shiv Sena. They can easily topple Uddhav's minority government, especially if they join ranks with the BJP. So that brings me to the legitimate question on the NewsHour tonight. Is resignation the only option left for Uddhav Thackeray? That's the question, and that's the debate on the other side.
You're watching the NewsHour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
And joining me on the debate tonight is Dr. Anand Ranganathan, author, Ratan Sharda, author, Swapnil Kothari, senior lawyer, Sanjay Hegde, senior advocate, Yogi Gade, leader of the Shiv Sena, Tehseen Poonawala, political analyst. But before I go across to my panel tonight, big breaking news coming in. According to latest information that we are hearing, the BJP is likely to hold a high-level meeting in Delhi tomorrow. In fact, over the next 24 hours, anytime. We are given to understand that Devendra Fadnavis may be heading to Delhi anytime soon to join this meeting and discuss the situation in Maharashtra. All happening at this time. So far, BJP has been watching, waiting in the wings, but now swinging into action, and a high-level meeting being held in the capital sometime tomorrow is what we are being given to understand. Also, the fact that Devendra Fadnavis and top leaders of the core group in BJP core group in Maharashtra, which held a meeting with Devendra Fadnavis earlier this evening, could be headed to New Delhi tomorrow. So the writings on the wall, is there some move which can somehow create a floor test? Is this preparation for that? We'll wait and watch. But big breaking news coming in today, and it sets the tone for which way Maharashtra is going to go over the next 24 to 48 hours. And I want to ask Yogi Gadeji. Yogi Gadeji, it has to be decided on the floor of the House. Kaun si Sena asli Sena hai? Eknath Shinde ji is saying that he has 39 Shiv Sena True Blue MLAs, and Aditya Thackeray ready for floor test, but keeps repeating, like Uddhav Thackeray ji, that unko वापस बुलाओ, सामने बैठ के आंख में आंख डाल के बोलो. Every time he says that, दो तीन और चले जाते हैं दूसरी तरफ. I want to ask you, many appeals have been made to these rebels to come back. They haven't yet come back. Are you still banking on the numbers to grow from the level of 15 or 16 that Mr. Uddhav Thackeray has right now?
Navika ji, if you are going to see, after the MLC voting happened, immediately these MLAs were taken, most of them. And if you go to, they are in high security in Guwahati, in Assam. How they can't even get out of the hotel even if they want to, the number one. And as far as you go to say about the floor test, yes, everything will be decided on the floor test. Floor of the House when there's a floor test, and you cannot come to conclusions that they have the numbers because they are showing in the video or they are showing that. Once what happens in the assembly is the true result, and going to the point who is a true Sena, who is not. If you go to see, Eknath ji Shinde is the leader of the House for the Legislative Assembly for the party. So therefore there cannot be a claim that he has a claim over the upper house also, and over there are so many other municipal corporations, Jilla Parishads elections where Shiv Sena has won. So definitely the real Shiv Sena will obviously be with Uddhavji Thackeray Sahib, because the MLAs are a group of a faction only for the Legislative Assembly. So obviously they cannot claim to be the original face of the entire property in the state of the party in the state or else in the national level.
Property कहाँ से आ गया? Ratan Sharda ji, I want to ask you, if 39 MLAs are with Eknath Shinde, and we both were on a show just 5 minutes ago with Deepak Keshekar, who said that there was no zor, no zabardasti, no force, no security, and they were doing what they wanted to do in the hotel that they are in right now. So where is this whole charge continuing to come from? Number one. And number two, there have been reports that Uddhav Thackeray wants to resign, but it is Sharad Pawar who is dissuading him from the resignation right now. So the question is, why is Sharad Pawar dissuading him? Does he have hope for the numbers for Uddhav to increase?
See, Navika, as far as Sharad, and I have told earlier, I will repeat again, he is one of the most manipulative politicians in India. He is the one with just 1/3 of MLAs ever, whenever he has stood right from 78, has been able to control the politics, but his politics doesn't go beyond a few districts of Western Maharashtra. But he can play the games. I think his fear is that if the government goes, what will happen to NCP? Because they have in a driver's seat right now. Secondly, this talk about propriety for people who actually destroyed the alliance on which they won, to talk about samne aake baat kar and all that, bombastic statement. These were people samne aake baat kiya. These people didn't listen to them. The PM was just on Facebook and on the phone. He never met his people. It was NCP which met his MLA, did their work. These people did nothing. So if that is the case, then today they're playing this kind of game. I can't understand the people who say that we will show them ताकत है तो सामने आके खड़े हो, resign करो. तो भैया आपने शिवसेना रिजाइन किया था जब अलायंस तोड़ा था. Secondly, resign करने की बात करते तो इतनी हिम्मत है तो Mr. Bal Thackeray's grandson should have stood in Bandra in his constituency. He didn't stand there. He came to Worli. He removed the biggest margin winner of Shiv Sena from there. He also got Sachin Ahir on his side because he was afraid to lose. That is the confidence these people in their own party, in their own victory. And when they say that we will see, they are destroying the entire governance in Maharashtra. Maharashtra was never seen such a poor governance. If they are so worried, they should have called for a floor test immediately. As far as Deputy Speaker is concerned, Deputy Speaker cannot invalidate the MLA seat because he can only remove their membership if they don't listen to the party meeting. If they call assembly meeting and then issue whip and these members don't listen, only then they can be disqualified as MLAs. And you go to courts and make all side of, you're trying to avoid the vote of confidence. It's utter totally disarray, and they have lost their entire idea what to do. They have outsourced the thing to Mr. Sharad Pawar, but Sharad Pawar is only my own man. He will do what is okay for his self-representation, not for Sena. And Sena people are so afraid of losing elections because they have lost contact with the people. They are fighting, they are in cahoots with the very people whom they are fighting in their own constituencies. So they realize now that they will not be able to survive the coming time. Apart from happiness with the alliance of Shiv Sena supporters, it also the kind of competition they have own constituency where no work was done. And if that
absolutely,
power,
absolutely, but Tehseen Poonawala, it's a bit of bit of an odd situation where the Shiv Sena, which was friends with the BJP, now sits with NCP and the Congress, and in court it doesn't have its own MLA support who are fighting against them, but has Congress lawyers defending them and advice from Sharad Pawar asking them not to quit. I mean, if there was an odd situation, then this is one which will go down in political history as the oddest of them all. Tehseen Poonawala, I want to ask you, is it so difficult to let go of power that Sharad Pawar is holding back Uddhav Thackeray even when numbers which matter in a democracy are not really with Uddhav Thackeray?
Namaskar, Navika ma'am. Thank you for having me on your show. Namaskar to all my fellow panelists and to all your viewers. To the second part of your question about the numbers can only be proved on the floor of the assembly. It cannot be proved in a TV studio, with due respect to you, and I have a lot of respect for you. It cannot even be proved in the Honorable Supreme Court, as the two learned lawyers on your show will tell you. It cannot even be proved anywhere on the streets. It can only be proved on the floor of the assembly. Therefore, my first submission before you and your audience is, please ask the BJP MLAs, whether rebel or whatever whatever they think of themselves, to stop getting the special massages that they are getting in Assam, and I don't know what that is. Maybe my friend Anand will be able to elaborate more on the scientific use of it, but stop getting that and come to Mumbai and prove the majority on the floor of the house, if they have a majority, so to speak. To what Ratan Sharda ji said, that I have to prove the majority, as I'm speaking third person, the Shiv Sena has to prove the majority. That's not true. The majority by the Shiv Sena has already been proved, and the honorable governor has already sworn in the chief minister. It is they or anybody who claims that the Shiv Sena and the MB does not have a majority needs to bring a no confidence motion. What I see today that happened in the court is something that upheld democracy, and I'll just be very brief and I'll end this. Just for your viewers to understand, to remove the speaker from the assembly under 179C of the Constitution of India, what is required is two very fundamental things. A, you need to pass a resolution, but to pass that resolution, it can only be passed when the House is in session, and you need to give a 14-day period for that resolution to be passed. Now, intention cannot remove a speaker. It has to be facts. And within 7 days of this resolution being passed, if they have minimum 29 MLA support, can this speaker be removed if they have that number? The Shiv Sena Eknath ji faction obviously does not have it, because if it had that kind of number, they would be in Mumbai proving the majority of removing the speaker, sitting in Assam in a five-star hotel.
A little minor detail that you seem to have missed out is the fact that the Shiv Sena moved to disqualify only 16 MLAs. Only 16 MLAs and not the 39 who had gone away. Under what intelligence, I don't know. Number one. 1 minute, hold on.
I'll reply on that.
Half-truths can be misleading. So let me complete, let me add to your speaker argument, let me add the MLA argument. The disqualification of the 16 MLAs has not been allowed by the Supreme Court. And the time that was given till today evening 5:30 has also been found insufficient by the Supreme Court and has been extended to 12th of July evening. So my friend, when you begin to become very pious and talk about, oh, inke paas number hote to they would have passed the resolution to remove the speaker, then agar aapne law theek se padha hota to aap bhi MLAs ki disqualification thoda रुक के सोच के समझ के तब मूव करते, because that is what the Supreme Court has found today. Now hold on, Anand Ranganathan, I'm coming back to you. Debate abhi shuru hui hai. We're all around. Anand Ranganathan, according to Tehseen Poonawala's argument, massages are illegal, but having fewer numbers in the house is legal. is legal. That's the nuts and bolts of the argument that he presented. Where do you stand on that argument?
Good evening, Navika, and good evening to my fellow esteemed panelists. I am willing to give free of cost a head massage to Tehseen if it makes him improve his logical capabilities. But I'm afraid it's not going to do any harm. There are two issues here, and both are very serious. Number one, Tehseen is an activist. I have seen him. Tehseen, please. I have never been a big boss contestant, so I do not know what other messages there are. But please, I'm talking of a very serious matter.
Which is what I was asking you for.
And I want to involve you as well, because it's a very serious matter. Tehseen, you are now, Navika.
Yes, I'm lowering his fader. I'm lowering his fader. Anand Ranganathan, go on.
Yes, Navika, I wanted to draw a parallel between what Tehseen said, which unfortunately, I hope you wouldn't mind my saying so, I found extremely egregious. His making light-hearted comments on something which is a very serious matter, because I want to bring him now. He has led, possibly still does, leads a life of an activist. I have seen him getting arrested, being pulled up from a police van. I think it was a case of onion price rise or something like that. I want to ask him, has Tehseen ever been manhandled, brutalized, his family targeted, his home and his offices vandalized, threats given to Tehseen that he is going to return back as a corpse? Has that ever happened to Tehseen? So when Tehseen says that those MLAs out there who are in hiding, admittedly, yes, and I was the first one to criticize them. But today in the Supreme Court, the lawyer for them has said, the threat, my lord, is real. Shiv Sena is threatening them of, they will come back as corpses. On what condition will they come back and hold, a floor test, or be in a condition to hold a floor test? Tehseen is an activist, he should know this. Is he not seeing the videos and the horrible visuals of their families, their businesses, their offices being targeted, of those horrible vicious comments being made against them? So, two things here. Number one, while I do agree that this kind of circus has gone on for too long, and there are esteemed lawyers on this panel who would be able to elucidate that much more, there has to be a floor test. It has to go back to being normal, Maharashtra Assembly. But how can you hold a floor test when such egregious threats are being given, and people like my good friend Tehseen are normalizing this kind of violence and threats of violence? I'm sorry, Navika, this is unacceptable.
Absolutely. And Deepak Keshrekar was with me just a few minutes ago and talking about the fact how his family, how he was being intimidated, how his car was surrounded by 150, 200 people, and how, literally threats were pouring down apart from bad language. But that apart, let me ask Sanjay Hegde. Sanjay Hegde, on the legal side, there are two questions that need to be settled. Is the Supreme Court's, interim order today going to stop a floor test from happening? Because as everybody in this country is watching, this drama has gone on for too long. Can there be a floor test in the interim before the Supreme Court hearing on the 11th of July? Number one. And number two, which is the real Shiv Sena? The one with 15 members or one with 39 members?
There is no Shiv Sena with 15 members. The Shiv Sena, if I remember rightly, has about 60 lakh registered members. About 40-50 of them happen to be MLAs. The MLAs are not the party. You can't, it's not a game of kabutarbazi where if you capture the majority of the kabutars, you can run around and saying, me Shivaji, me Shivaji. That's not how it works. As far as your first question is concerned, as to what the Supreme Court has done, let me just explain it to you. The Supreme Court is on vacation. It is reopening on the 11th of July. It has said, please finish all the paperwork. You say that the Deputy Speaker can't decide your question of disqualification. The Deputy Speaker says that you gave a notice through an email which was written by a lawyer. That does not amount to be a proper procedure, and the Deputy Speaker has not taken that on the record of the Assembly itself. All these questions we'll go into on the 11th, but in the meanwhile, don't do anything which will make the matter infructuous. Therefore, what it has done, it has not stayed anything. All that it has said is that till the 11th, extend the date for them to put in a reply. Now, a floor test can be held at any point of time. That was never an issue before the Supreme Court. But a floor test for what? A floor test happens when a set of people goes either to the Assembly and says, we want to bring in a no confidence motion, or they go to the governor and say, look, there is no floor test being summoned. We have withdrawn our support to the government. Please ask the government to prove its majority. Now, one more thing in constitutional law, in a parliamentary system, a government may not even have a majority on the floor of the House. But as long as it is not defeated on the floor of the House, it can continue. There have been minority governments in India. Indira Gandhi ran a minority government. Manmohan Singh ran a minority government. Narasimha Rao ran a minority government. But when a floor test was ultimately held, you remember that the CPM walked away after the nuclear deal? There was a floor test. And in the floor test, the government of the day survived. So whoever goes to Guwahati, whoever gets massages or money or whatever else, that is absolutely irrelevant. Ultimately, has somebody staked an alternate claim to government? If there is a stake, then summon the Assembly and have a floor test. You just can't have a floor test in the air. You can't have a floor test to determine who is the real Shiv Sena.
Well, Swapnil Kothari, is there no grounds for anybody to say, because he's saying there are so many lakhs of members of the Shiv Sena, so who's the real Shiv Sena is not the question. Is that the only way to look at this? Because the Shiv Sena as a party may exist, but the fact is these parties send their representatives, and these representatives are in the Legislative Assembly, and in that Legislative Assembly there were 55 of them. Now 39 are on one side, 16 are on the other side. Are you saying the question of which is the real Shiv Sena is misplaced and will not be decided on the basis of these numbers, but will be decided on the basis of the registered members which exist in the party's headquarters?
The answer to that is no, Navika. That's an erroneous interpretation. The 50,000-60,000 members who have registered are not considered as Shiv Sena for the purposes of the Legislative Assembly. It's those 55 MLAs now reduced down to 13 or 16 to whatever numbers that they are. So the majority members who constitute that may be considered as Shiv Sena by the Election Commission if they so wish to, profess that before the Election Commission. My basic issue is that the floor test, to say that it cannot be conducted or it should not be conducted is erroneous again, simply because the floor test must be conducted. The governor has the discretionary power. He doesn't have to wait for anybody to come to him and tell him. He has the discretionary power when he looks at the fact he is the constitutional head of any state. So when he looks at these numbers, these depleting numbers which are there in the Council of Ministers, obviously he has a right to say that, look, the majority is not there. I can call for the floor test. Now, as far as when he calls for the floor test, what the Uddhav Thackeray camp could do is they could say, sorry, we do not agree to this because we have our proceedings pending, because the entire purpose of getting the members disqualified, and 16 at that, surprisingly you asked a very relevant question as to why only 16. Obviously on that ground, that Supreme Court could say that it's very arbitrary to send these kind of a disqualification notice where you send only to 16 out of some 30, 40 people that who've left for Guwahati. You cannot be selective about this. That's the aspect of arbitrariness under Article 14 of the Constitution. Now, coming to this point is that you cannot say that the floor test cannot be conducted. The floor test, the governor has the power, he's the constitutional head. When he looks at the Council of Ministers, who in turn appoint the chief minister, he's going to say that there is not enough number, there's not enough majority. So let me call for a floor test. Now, if both the parties agree to that, then this whole proceedings before the Supreme Court get nullified or infructuous, because both the parties have now agreed for the floor test to be conducted, and they're prepared to whatever outcome, whatever comes out of it. The entire purpose of having the disqualification notice, was to quell or to reduce the numbers so that when the floor test happens, the disqualification law, which is the anti-defection law under the 10th schedule of the Constitution, comes into play and say that you do not have the requisite numbers, you're disqualified because you do not have the 2/3 numbers, which is 37 of your own party that need to be there. And, I'm surprised, Navika, that there is some quaint notion that this rebel camp needs to merge with the party when paragraph 4 of the 10th schedule of the Constitution as amended by the 91st Amendment clearly states that either you merge or you form your own faction. So I do not understand. Obviously, I do not recommend that they call themselves Shiv Sena. They can call themselves anything else. They can tie up with the BJP and that they can appear and have a floor test if they wish to have that.
Sorry, read para 4.
Well, now the point is, wait, can I finish, please? So the point is that regardless of what happens, the floor test can be conducted, but provided both the parties, if they concede to that. But I'm sure that Mr. Uddhav Thackeray's camp would, run a tad hesitant to do that, not because they don't have the numbers, but because they may say that, look, we have our proceedings pending. Let us try to expeditely, finish that. But the government could say that, no, I'll approach the Supreme Court and I'll say, let's finish that off first. And then try to get this out of the way.
So you're saying we are back to square one, and Dr. Anand Ranganathan,
Navika, 10 seconds.
Yes, then we come back to square one, and the entire proceedings continue to hang in balance. There cannot be a floor test, and we still won't have a government at the end of the day in Maharashtra till 11th of July when the Supreme Court hears. Is that the way forward?
Well,
Navika, can I please suggest a way forward which is sensible and logical, which is that for
it's not just back to square one.
Sorry.
It is, I'm pointing out the legal impediment that the governor could face if he wishes to.
I agree with you, Swapnil Kothari, but I'm also looking at it, between, two lawyers never agree with each other. Sanjay Hegde is objecting to what you're saying. Iske beech mein janta hai, which is sitting for the last 8 days, watching a tennis match and the ball going from one side to another, from Mumbai to Guwahati, then from Guwahati to Mumbai, and in the middle there was a Supreme Court here today, which is again kept the ball in the air, and we are waiting, will it fall down, will it not? Anand Ranganathan, isn't that how the situation is?
No, absolutely, and I was just about to suggest something which was a remedy for this, which is as following. Navika, for 2 years, the whole world, leave alone India, has gone through the most dramatic and most tragic turmoils where our lives have been turned upside down. We've learned to live with online Zoom calls. You've conducted debates on Zoom. Supreme Court has conducted hearings. The two esteemed lawyers on this panel would agree. They've conducted hearings on Zoom. Karnataka High Court hijab hearing was completely on Zoom. Why can't we have a floor test on Zoom?
No, that's fine.
You need a constitutional amendment for that. Absolutely. Do a constitutional amendment, then let's abolish all
on Zoom. People may be put on gunpoint also if they're on Zoom call.
Let's have the Lok Sabha on Zoom. No, come on. There is a
on Zoom,
limit.
anybody can be locked in a room. They can be put on gunpoint.
Are you saying, Sanjay Hegde, that the court cases before the Supreme Court were any less important than a floor test? They could be done on Zoom?
No, yes. You can't have it on Zoom. Exactly. You would have to amend the constitution, because there is, after all, you have the legislature. You would therefore have to have the legislature in session within the physical jurisdiction of the place. Now, if you want to have it on Zoom, please amend the constitution and start doing it. But tossing it off just like this, off the drop of your hat in a TV debate, I'm sorry, I'm too much of a traditionalist.
Fair point. It's not possible to do it, at least as of now, till there's a constitutional amendment. But Tehseen Poonawalla, the point really is, why are we not looking at the people of Maharashtra? What are they getting? For 8 days, they've been in suspended animation. The government has not been in suspended animation. It's just been suspended. Animation hai nahi abhi. But people are waiting and watching about what's going on between Mumbai and Guwahati, and all the legal eagles, all the advice, and there have been speculations which say that Uddhav Thackeray wanted to resign, but Sharad Pawar has prevented him from doing so. I want to ask you, is there no way that there can be some morality and propriety about these things, and the constituents of an alliance can sit together, look at the entire situation and decide whether they have the numbers or they don't have the numbers, and do what is right, as they say, हमारा जो धर्म होता है या संस्कार जो बताते हैं कि अगर नहीं है नंबर तो भाई हट जाओ, allow some sort of a government to come back to power, because ultimately, is this about power or is this about the people of Maharashtra?
Navika, just one line. Atal Bihari Vajpayee in the 13-day government. Atal Bihari Vajpayee ran a 13-day government despite not having the numbers. He did it to prove a political point. He came back to power, right? So ultimately, irrespective of whether you have the numbers or not, the floor test, a no confidence motion, speeches, that is what is going to set the tone.
Well, so you're saying instead of morality and propriety, there should be a platform for more speech making. Well, you talked about a 13-day government. Let me also remind you, Sanjay Hegde and Tehseen Poonawalla, of a 13-month government, which also fell because the Congress played foul in that particular floor test. Girdhar Gomang, and I was a young reporter in Parliament in those days. Girdhar Gomang went and became the Chief Minister of Odisha. He had been sent from Lok Sabha to become the Chief Minister. He had assumed, he had been sworn in as the Chief Minister of Odisha, but came back because he hadn't still resigned his Lok Sabha seat, and he came back and voted, and it was that one vote that made the Vajpayee government fall in 1999. And I want to ask you, Tehseen Poonawalla, it is that propriety and morality that I'm bringing back on the table tonight. It was immoral then of the Congress party, and it is immoral today of the Congress party and the NCP to stick on and to hold on to power when the numbers really show that it's time to say bye.
I don't understand, Navika, and you're a very senior reporter, and an editor, and I have so much respect for you. You keep seeing the numbers show, the numbers don't show anywhere, including in the Honorable Supreme Court. Before His Majesty, we all bow. The number can only show on the floor of the House, and you have to come to Mumbai in the Assembly and prove your numbers if you have these hypothetical numbers, which I believe they don't have. Point number two, to Anand's point, why don't you do it on Zoom? Yeah, Anand, let's do it on Zoom. Why is the Prime Minister building a new parliament? That's not the debate of today. What is the debate for today is simple, this one line. Has anyone brought in a no confidence against the... You must come in after
Ratan Sharda. Ratan Sharda, Tehseen has a point. What happened with Girdhar Gomang, immoral or improper, the fact is that it happened on the floor of the House, and today also, those who claim they have the numbers should demand this on the floor of the House and put the people of Maharashtra out of their misery. What is taking so long?
First of all, let me say that the Honorable, very senior advocate, Mr. Hegde, has made some very effective points about government not decided by the MLAs to be decided by lakhs of people on the road. Is he advocating direct democracy? Is he saying that indirect democracy of choosing MLA who run the government is wrong? By his own statement, he means that it doesn't matter that he used the word kabutarbaji. So if MLAs are kabutars, and there is no sense in there being any party, why have elections? Do you have direct elections? He is negating the entire constitutional makeup of these elections. That is point one. Point two, he talked, floor test, everybody is talking. There are a number of judgments, every time at least 7 or 8, when Supreme Court has called for a floor test within 24 hours, when they say there is no majority. Why this time Supreme Court didn't know when they went to the courts? I do not know. I am not a legal expert, nor can I spout knowledge like other lawyers sitting here. But I can say it was very possible for the government, which knows that its 40 MLAs are out of their hold, to say, okay, these people are not there, let me have a floor test. You're so sure of floor test, the government should proactively call for them. This government took 6 days to remove the ministers who were part of Shiv Sena. So they don't want to govern. They don't want to do anything. They want to somehow delay the whole pain so they can try to somehow get their MLAs back by threat and by every kind of arm twisting. So we have to understand, if we want to stop arm twisting, the governor has to come into picture, knowing what is happening with so many MLAs of Shiv Sena party, and call for notice immediately.
Well, Sanjay Hegde, you want to respond?
Yes. There's a small thing called the Constitution of India. You must read it again and again and again. So paragraph 4 of the 10th schedule says, a member of a house shall not be disqualified under the subparagraph where his original party merges with another political party, and he claims that he and any other members of the original party are the true party, and for the purposes of this subparagraph, the merger shall be deemed to have taken place if and only if 2/3 of the members have agreed to a merger. So Mr. Shinde's original party, the Shiv Sena, has it merged with any other party? No. Does he now seek to merge with any other political party? So far, no. All his functioning has been on the basis that I have split. The split has gone away from the anti-defection schedule from 2003. Today, if you have to succeed and not be disqualified, you have to merge. So there is no question of any Shinde Sena, this Sena. Please go and merge with the BJP. Thereafter, lay claim saying that now the BJP has some 30-odd people more in addition to the 100 and something which it originally had. Now the BJP is in position to form a government in Maharashtra, go to the governor The governor will then say, Mr. Chief Minister, that is Mr. Uddhav Thackeray, please prove your majority on the floor of the House. There will be a floor test. There will be speeches. And ultimately, there will be voting.
Well,
that is how a parliamentary democracy works.
Well, Dr. Anand Ranganathan, in the end, what are we looking at? More and more constitutional procedures, and yet people's interests clearly taking a backseat for the moment. Anand?
No, absolutely, Navika. Yes, Navika, look, I have the primary concern for me is the concern of the people of Maharashtra. And I'm not a Luddite. I believe in solutions, not problems, or, being a traditionalist. As I've already said, the solution is in front of you, which is a floor test. Now, it can be Supreme Court appointed floor test as soon as possible, because the longer this goes on, it is resembling the Agatha Christie novel, and then there were none. These MLAs slowly, one by one, are going to be coerced. Their families are going to be blackmailed, and slowly you will find them dwindling down. So two solutions. One, either Z plus security be given, all the MLAs brought to Maharashtra under the auspices of Supreme Court, hold a test, or a Supreme Court judge goes to Guwahati and under his auspices has a Zoom online floor test. That's it. That's a solution.
Well, but that solution, of course, will have to go through some constitutional.
One second, Navika, you cannot allow this. Sorry. How can a court interfere in the functioning of the House? The House is run only and only by the Speaker. What are you allowing on the show, Navika? Are we throwing the Constitution out? Are we replacing the Constitution with WhatsApp Constitution? Can a Supreme
Who is the Speaker? For 1.5 years, you don't have a Speaker.
Come on, Anand. I don't expect this from you. How can a Supreme Court judge? Tomorrow, can a Speaker of the House, can Om Birla run the Supreme Court? Can he become Chief Justice?
It's clear, Tehseen Poonawala, don't get all agitated. He is only offering a solution. It's not a constitutional amendment that he is even suggested, that you are suddenly becoming so intolerant of something an ordinary man is saying. A man who's not part of politics is looking at the people. No, it's just an out-of-the-box suggestion. You don't have to go all blue in your face trying to say कि अरे भाई कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की हत्या हो गई. उस दिन को भी याद कर लो जिस दिन गिरधर गोमंग ने वोट किया था. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की हत्या तब भी हुई थी. तब आपको इतना बोलना शायद याद नहीं रहा था क्योंकि तब हत्या करने वाले आप थे. आज आप बहुत एजिटेटेड नजर आ रहे हैं. बट whichever way you look at it, it is really an issue that concerns the people of Maharashtra. And at the moment, while the Shiv Sena, the NCP, Shiv Sena, Faction 1 and the NCP seem to be talking to each other, and the legal support comes from the Congress party lawyers, the other side is the faction that claims to have more MLAs, but the BJP is still playing coy. We are given to understand that coyness is going to go away, and in the next 24 hours, the top high-level meeting will be held by the BJP to assess the situation. In the meanwhile, will the governor push the envelope? Will he ask? Because the governor can suo moto look at the state that he's sitting in and look at the state of the people who are looking for a government to govern them. Can the governor push the envelope and order a floor test, or will there be ifs and buts on that as well? And once again, another round of legal battles. Well, we're hoping Maharashtra sees a government sooner than later. Thank you very much to my panelists for joining me on debate number 1. On the other side, the big Teesta Seetalwad debate. Ladies and gentlemen, the Supreme Court on Friday crushed a scheme that has been going on for 2 decades, again against Prime Minister Modi. In a strong-worded opposition, the court observed that the 2002 Gujarat riots pot was kept boiling by fabrication of evidence. That verdict has disappointed the Congress party. Jairam Ramesh came out and perhaps gave the first statement on the issue. Well, it was less of a statement and more of a questionnaire for the Prime Minister. 8 questions that the Congress claims the Prime Minister can't wash his hands of. Jairam Ramesh asked about the constitutional and moral responsibility of the then Gujarat Chief Minister Narendra Modi in cases of communal riots. Now, while the grand old party waits for answers to those questions, I want to ask some questions of my own to the Congress party. And I want to do so based on the new facts that have tumbled out in the Teesta files. HRD ministry under the NDA in 2016 submitted a report that brought out the truth about Teesta Setalwad's plot against Modi. The findings point out at an allegedly inappropriate nexus between the UPA government and Teesta Setalwad's trust, Sabrang. The report says the then UPA government had given a grant of 1.40 crore to Setalwad's trust. The grant was approved despite objections raised by the NCRT, which said that Teesta's NGO was ineligible for these funds. And guess what happened to that money, ladies and gentlemen? Those funds were later used to print textbooks which were full of corrosive communal hate against the Hindu community. So was there a quid pro quo between Teesta and the Congress back then? And is that why the Congress is a little edgy today? That's the question. And the one who's thrown a lot of light on some of these issues is former associate of Teesta Setalwad, Rais Khan, who joins us today. And Rais Khan, thank you for joining me on the NewsHour tonight. You once said Teesta used to coach many others to falsify affidavits to implicate Prime Minister Modi. Vitthal Pandya also was one of these. Please tell us more about what you know during your association with Teesta Setalwad.
हाँ जी, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल बिल्कुल। जो विट्ठल पांड्या थे, आर्यन पांड्या के फादर, वो उस वक्त जो थे उनसे इन्होंने मुझसे ही कहा था कि विट्ठल पांड्या से हमको मिलना है, और विट्ठल पांड्या के साथ में जो नाइंसाफ़ी, उनका बेटा मारा गया, हम उसके बारे में एफिडेविट करना चाहते हैं। तो विट्ठल पांड्या से हमने मिलकर पूछा और उन्होंने अपनी रजामंदी दी, तो मैं इनको विट्ठल पांड्या के घर पे लेकर गया और वहाँ पर विट्ठल पांड्या ने जो है इनको बताया कि हमारे बेटे के साथ में ये, हालांकि वो सब कुछ देखा वो विट्ठल पांड्या का नहीं था। उन्होंने एक बात बताई कि मैंने ये सुना, मैंने ये सुना, मैंने ये सुना, ये सारी बातें थी उनकी। तो इन्होंने उसके लिए भी एफिडेविट बनाई थी, तैयार की थी उस समय के जो मुख्यमंत्री थे उनके खिलाफ।
रईस खान साहब, 1.5 करोड़ दिया था तब की एचआरडी मिनिस्ट्री जो एजुकेशन देखती है, कपिल सिब्बल मंत्री रहते थे। आपने तीस्ता के साथ काम किया है। सबरंग जो उनकी एनजीओ थी वो तो एलिजिबल भी नहीं थी, तो ये पैसे कैसे मिल गए तीस्ता सीतलवाद की एनजीओ को यूपीए की सरकार में?
नहीं, उस वक्त इनको तो उन्होंने, क्योंकि वो पूरी तरह से कांग्रेस की सपोर्ट थी इनको हर तरह से। इनके एक ट्रस्ट तो है नहीं, इनके तो कई ट्रस्ट थे, तो वो उसको एडजस्टमेंट किसी और ट्रस्ट में किया गया था। और ये सिटीजन फॉर जस्टिस एंड पीस, ये दंगा हुआ 2002 फरवरी में। इनका जो सिटीजन फॉर जस्टिस एंड पीस जो है ये अप्रैल में जो है रजिस्ट्रेशन हुआ है।
रईस खान साहब, कांग्रेस के किन नेताओं से तीस्ता क्लोज थी? क्या आप ये बिल्कुल कॉन्फिडेंस से कह सकते हैं कि कोई उनके साथ सपोर्ट था, कांग्रेस का सपोर्ट था तीस्ता जी को?
बिल्कुल, और उस वक्त की लेफ्ट ने भी दिया था इनको पैसा, जिसमें सबसे आगे बिंद्रा करार थी।
Big revelations. Thank you, Rais Khan Saab, for joining us. Let me go across to our panelists on the other side. GVL Narasimha Rao, Member of Parliament and National Spokesperson. Saira Shah Halim, Political Analyst. Tehseen Poonawala, Political Analyst. But my first question is to you, Dr. Anand Ranganathan. Dr. Anand Ranganathan, yet another conspiracy coming to light. And we've spoken about this in the past, but it seems that it was an organized conspiracy between the Congress and the left to prop up Teesta Setalwad. Money, support, everything, just to target one man, Narendra Modi.
Good evening, Navika. Look, you know, people like Teesta Setalwad are a constant reminder that the only qualifications required nowadays to join activism are hypocrisy, communal bigotry, fake news, mediocrity, back scratching, character assassination, uninhibited, unrepentant hate, and Congress and left support. Her past indiscretions read like the Dead Sea Scrolls of fraud and lies. Of such historical significance, they should be preserved in the Museum of Propaganda and Lies. Allow me to recount a few. Number one, the Supreme Court recently dismissed her petition to unfreeze her bank accounts frozen after charges of embezzling funds meant for 2002 riot victims. The funds were allegedly used for alcohol, movies and food. 2. Her NGO trust SCPL was found to have blatantly violated FCRA norms when handed $200,000. 3. A Cree prosecution witness in the 2002 Best Bakery case, Yasmin Banu, claimed she was lured by Teesta into giving false testimony. Quote, Teesta made me give false testimony by luring and misguiding me and promising to help me financially, unquote. 4. Teesta took her hate and lies to the point of unrestrained psychopathy by claiming that a riot victim, Kausar Banu's womb was ripped open by rioters and her fetus brandished at sword point. The journalist Uday Mahurkar exposed this blatant lie by contacting Dr. Kanoria, who did the post-mortem. Number 5. Teesta was booked for fraudulently obtaining 1.4 crores for her trust from UPA HRD ministry between 2010 and 2013. And who filed the complaint? Her own associate you just talked to. Teesta's trust pushed a curriculum for school children that was considered venomous and rejected by NCRT. But Kapil Sibal approved it. Number 6. Teesta is virulently Hindu-phobic and once drew equivalence between ISIS beheading and Goddess Kali's face morphed with a terrorist. She was shamelessly silent recently when hundreds of Hindu women were raped and killed and ethnically cleansed in the horrific post-Poll Bengal violence. 7. She believes, quote, minority communalism is not a threat to Indian democracy. The RSS and BJP are, because they communalized even the army during Kargil by, believe it or not, sending Rakhis to soldiers. 8. Her NGO ran a virulent ad campaign. The 1.5 crore cost was funded by Congress and the CPIM. She admitted this herself in an interview. 9. She championed the fake church attack narrative and infamously rationalized the burning lie of Godhra train victims as a reaction to their provoking Muslims by, believe it or not, traveling to Ayodhya. 10. She was caught recently tutoring the Shaheen Bagh anarchists and Islamists to say what to say to Supreme Court. Lastly, Navika, just 30 seconds. Last week, Supreme Court order clearly establishes that Setalwad and others had conspired to abuse the process of law. This is her past. Imagine the future. If I were to sum her up in one sentence, Navika, just 10 seconds, it would be that Teesta is a river of lies fed by a glacier of deceit and emptying into an ocean of fraud.
Tehseen Poonawalla. The Congress supported all of this? All of this? 1.4 crores to an unrecognized NGO, and her own associates have given that statement. I want to ask you, so much hate for one man, Narendra Modi, that you can actually run a conspiracy this size to punish somebody for 20 years?
There is no hate for the Honorable Prime Minister and Honorable Chief Minister of Gujarat. The hate, if any, or conspiracy is any, if you may kindly explain, was the then Chief Minister of Gujarat under some kind of conspiracy that he was filing sedition cases against Times of India, your sister concern, which he did? Was the then Chief Minister of Gujarat under some kind of conspiracy that he was going about abusing the then Election Commissioner James Lindo? Was the then Chief Minister of Gujarat under some kind of conspiracy that Smriti Irani was protesting against him and she said that she has to cleanse Gujarat of the right?
For once in your life, answer the questions that have been raised. Diverting questions means you don't have the answer.
But the conspiracy, if this was a conspiracy, then why was the Chief Minister of Gujarat calling others not
Kapil Sibal okay the draft which was rejected by NCRT, yes or no? Was Teesta's NGO given money regardless of her eligibility for it? Yes or no? Just answer that.
The matter, if it's not even sub judice, if it's sub judice, the court will decide. I don't know if it was or not. I don't even know if they've given money, they followed the law. Then They should prosecute everybody. I'm telling you, prosecute. Why do you prosecute?
Saira Shah Ali,
also prosecute.
Saira Shah Ali, the left and the Congress, and Rais Khan says Brinda Karat herself, Rais Khan's allegations, Brinda Karat herself was at the forefront, the Congress was at the forefront to keep running this factory of hate against Narendra Modi. For what?
See, I'll be very clear, Navika. This is nothing but an act of vindictive politics. This is to stifle dissenting voices and also human rights defenders who act as watchdog of the state.
This is vindictive politics. And when you were targeting Narendra Modi, it was politics of love. That was not vindictive.
No.
That was not vindictive. This is vindictive.
Defense of human rights defenders. I'm not targeting anybody.
My friend, human rights were violated in West Bengal also. How come you people lose your voice there?
10 seconds.
No, I have spoken about every incident, whether it's pertaining to West Bengal
and Jairam Ramesh has raised 8 questions saying, what about the moral responsibility of Mr. Modi? I want to ask you, what about the moral responsibility of the Rajiv Gandhi government in 1984? That question's never been asked.
See, this action...
1 minute, GVL Narasimha Rao, all other faders, I'm running out of time. GVL Narasimha Rao.
This has been targeting...
Navika, justice has eventually prevailed. Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi has always, all along, kept his faith in the process of law, in the due process of law, and eventually truth has triumphed. The sinister conspiracy that was hatched and that was fully supported, backed by the Congress party. And every attempt was to politically target a leader and to really destroy him politically, use every institution in its hand, in its control, and use the levers of power to target him, tarnish his image. But he has never lost his patience. Unlike these Congress leaders who run to the streets to protest against even a common inquiry by the Enforcement Directorate, Honorable Prime Minister showed his compassion, showed his trust in the due process of law. And what is now being done is also following the process of law. The Honorable Supreme Court in its judgment has
running out of time. Last 10 seconds, Anand Ranganathan.
Navika, 5 seconds. Yes, and only because my good friend Tehseen lied on national television. Navika, can I please ask you your full name?
Navika Kumar.
Excellent. My name is Anand Ranganathan. Tehseen's is Tehseen Poonawala, and Sara Shah Halim, my elder sister, her name is Sara Shah Halim. When Tehseen said Narendra Modi abused the election commissioner, all he did was he said James Michael Lindo. किसी का नाम लेना abuse है?
No.
Well, that settles the debate. Much more has been said, Tehseen Poonawala, about the man Narendra Modi himself. You know the names that he's been called by several Congress leaders. Introspect about that before you make charges at others. Well, it's time for the Supreme Court, as it said, to bring those to book. If that's happening, what can be the objection? That's the question we are asking tonight. Thank you very much to you viewers, and thank you very much to my panelists for joining me on the NewsHour tonight. Good night. I'll see you tomorrow.
The NewsHour at 9 will be right back after the break.
I've just used a figurative language. I'm not...
Uddhav Thackeray and Sharad Pawar also had a last-minute meeting last night over the phone. What do we expect to happen now?
Well, a last-ditch effort being made by the Uddhav Thackeray camp that is in the Shiv Sena. We understand that 3 leaders basically...
And in fact, that is the reason why I am here. So after that meeting, definitely I have to meet media, and what is the outcome of that meeting, we explain there.
सर लेकिन महाराष्ट्र में जिस तरह से राजनीति तेज हो गई है, शिवसेना के विधायक जो है कई सारे सूरत में पहुंच गए, आपको लगता है कि महाराष्ट्र गवर्नमेंट को खतरा
सरकार गिरने वाली
है कि ये कुछ महाराष्ट्र में हुआ, ये पिछले 2-2.5 साल में दिस इज द थर्ड इंसिडेंट। इससे पहले 2 हुए थे। मुझे याद है कि जब उद्धव ठाकरे जी का सरकार बना, इससे पहले कुछ हमारे एमएलए को उठाकर यहाँ हरियाणा में, गुजरात में, कुछ एरिया में।
You're watching the News Hour at 9. You were watching the News Hour at 9. Stay tuned.
एडमिरल हरि कुमार
रखे गए थे, मगर बाद में वहाँ से निकल कर वो ऑफिस आ गए, सरकार बनाया। सरकार बनने के बाद पिछले 2.5 साल सरकार ठीक से चल रहा है। कल वहाँ इलेक्शन था और जहाँ तक एनसीपी है कि एनसीपी के 2 कैंडिडेट थे और दोनों कैंडिडेट को जो वोटों का कोटा हम लोगों ने दिया था वो पूरी तरह से मिला। एनसीपी का एक भी वोट इधर से उधर नहीं गया, बिल्कुल डिसिप्लिनली हमारे एमएलए ने वोटिंग वहाँ किया। और इससे वो जो कुछ कल का इंसिडेंट था, इससे हम किसी में हम नाराज़ नहीं है। एक बात सच है कि हमारे फ्रंट का एक कैंडिडेट जीत नहीं सका, वहाँ कुछ वोटों की कमियाँ वहाँ आ गई, मगर ये अन्य पॉलिटिकल पार्टी का जो कोटा था और अन्य पॉलिटिकल पार्टी की जिम्मेदारी थी उनका कैंडिडेट जिताने के लिए, उसमें कामयाबी नहीं आई। मगर हम वापस जाने के बाद
वन ऑफ द सॉल्यूशंस जो आया है वो इज टू अडॉप्ट अ स्कीम लाइक द अग्निपथ। इफ यू अडॉप्ट द स्कीम, ये जो एज प्रोफाइल है वो करीब 25 या 24 तक आ जाएगा, एवरेज एज प्रोफाइल। तो फाइटिंग फोर्स के लिए क्या चाहिए? फाइटिंग फोर्स एकदम फिट होना चाहिए, एकदम यंग होना चाहिए और इसमें करेक्ट मिक्स होना चाहिए ऑफ जोश और जज्बा।
Good evening and welcome. You're watching the News Hour Agenda, India's most loved primetime show at 10. I'm Padmaja Joshi. For the last 1 week, Maharashtra has been in the grip of one question. Who is the real Shiv Sena? Today, after being granted protection from disqualification for 2 weeks by the Supreme Court, Eknath Shinde and his camp said that this is the win of the real Shiv Sena. His confidence obviously bolstered after the Supreme Court technically put a stay on disqualification of rebel MLAs of the Sena for at least 2 weeks. The Apex Court also asked for security to be provided to all of the rebel MLAs. Now, what does this mean? It means basically that all of these rebels will have the numbers on their side and are now capable of moving a no-trust vote. Also, their return to Mumbai becomes that much easier because finally security to them will be guaranteed on the court's instructions. No wonder then that soon after the verdict, celebrations broke out in the rebel camp from Mumbai to Guwahati.
The time to file our reply to the notice of the Deputy Speaker for our disqualification is extended till the 12th of July. Secondly, has directed and recorded the undertaking of the state government that all protection to life and liberty of these 39 MLAs as also their family members shall be extended by the state government.
Only one question. The team is still in Shiv Sena. Only one reaction on that. Only one reaction. आप लोग still अभी भी शिव सैनिक हैं। लेकिन पार्टी अभी आपने समर्थन निकाला है सर। समर्थन निकाला इसका मतलब हमने शिव सेना छोड़ी नहीं है। तो क्या अब दूसरा शिव सेना बनने को तैयार है?
Now, if you're wondering
Whether a patch-up between the Shiv Sena and the BJP is still possible, the answer to that is a resounding no. Sources, in fact, say that Uddhav Thackeray did try and reach out to the BJP in the last 1 week, but things went completely south after threats from the Uddhav camp, more specifically from Sanjay Raut. From challenging rebels to set foot in Delhi to even remarking yesterday that 40 corpses would be returning to Maximum City, and as soon as they arrived, they would be sent for a post-mortem.
या 40 आमदारांच्या बॉड्या इथे येतील, त्यांना डायरेक्ट सभागृहात पोस्टमार्टम मध्ये पाठवू.
रास्ते की लड़ाई रास्ते पर सड़क पर हो सकती है, हो जाएगी. अब तक शिवसैनिक सड़क पर नहीं उतरे हैं. चाहे कितने भी लोगों को आप खरीद लो, दबाव डालो, लेकिन कानून की लड़ाई, कागज़ की लड़ाई और सड़क की लड़ाई, दोनों में हम जीत जाएंगे. जिसको हमारा सामना करना है, मुंबई में आ सकते हैं. पूरी तैयारी है, आप आइए. अब हमारा चैलेंज.
Now, as this week-long drama draws down, the question many are asking whether the entire mess could perhaps be the creation of some Bayanveers, people who do not think twice before shooting from the hip in the Sena camp. Have these Bayanveers ensured that any path to a reconciliation is irretrievably shot? And will Uddhav Thackeray now at least try and do some damage control by acting against the likes of Sanjay Raut, who haven't even shied away from giving calls to violence?
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Joining us on the debate, Karan Verma, author, Varun Singh, senior journalist, Sanjay Gupta, leader of Shiv Sena, Sundar Balakrishnan, political analyst. My first question is to you, Kuntal Krishna, political analyst. I want to actually read to you what Deepak Kesarkar, one of the rebel MLAs, has said. In fact, he has pretty much clearly indicated that if today there is one person who has perhaps single-handedly created this mess, it is Sanjay Raut. In his letter today, he says, those who got elected to the Rajya Sabha because of us are now abusing us every day. We are called dirty pigs. Much disturbing abuse is coming our way, so much so that our dead bodies are now awaited.
Padmaja, you know, these 30-40 people who call themselves Shiv Sena rebels, so these 50-60 lakhs of Shiv Sainiks, they have got the same question to ask them. I don't know what Mr. Rawat said, but it is a political loyalist who expressed his views. See, these people who have now become Shiv Sena rebels, these MLAs who have become Shiv Sena rebels, it is Shiv Sena who made them MLAs.
Really?
If they have any problem, like
as opposed to the self-made man that Sanjay Raut is.
If he is having any problem,
so Deepak Kalsekar has been para-dropped, but Sanjay Raut has worked his way upwards from the grassroots.
If he has been, did they ever speak to Uddhav ji? Did they ever speak to their Sena chief? If they have any problem, they should have spoke to their own party leadership. Did they do this? They didn't do this. So if this 50-60 lakh of Sena workers, the Shiv Sainiks who made them MLAs, they have got the same question to ask them.
What is the question?
It is very clear. It is very clear. There cannot be any Shiv Sena without Thackeray's. You have to, if you have got any problem, you should speak to your leader first.
Varun Singh, there cannot be any Shiv Sena without Thackeray's. Kesarkars can come and go. Shindes can come and go. Everyone else can come and go. So basically, Sanjay Raut is only expressing the anguish of millions and millions of Shiv Sainis.
There cannot be.
Sanjay Raut is expressing the anguish that he is going through, seeing that slowly the empire, the political empire that he has built, or the alliance that he's built of MVA slipping throughout his hand. That is the frustration. And answering to the gentleman's Mishra's question, or probably, no one has ever said that there has to be a Sena without Thackeray. Even these 40 MLAs are still hoping that Uddhav Thackeray will break an alliance with the MVA. And read Kesarkar's letter. He has categorically said, all those people who have won Rajya Sabha, unke balboote pe jo jeet ke aaye hain, they are the one now trying to teach them how to do politics. A Shinde is not just a strong man. A Shinde is a pillar in Shiv Sena who has been handling not just one but at least 15 districts in Maharashtra. Today, Parbani MLA Patil, he has reached over there. Someone who till yesterday was with Uddhav Thackeray. Parbani is a very strong hold of Shiv Sena. He's seeing the writing on the wall. I don't know when will, I have been of the thought that Uddhav and Aditya both are sensibles. They would see the writing on the wall.
Kuntal Krishna, essentially what now rebels are saying is कि वो एक वो मुहावरा है ना कि आप जिस डाली पे बैठे हैं उसी को आप काट रहे हैं. There are some people within the Shiv Sena जो पूरे Shiv Sena की डाली को काट रहे हैं and nobody is being able to see the writing on the wall.
Padmaja, if it is so, why can't Mr. Shinde and his friends resign and go for a fresh election?
Why would they resign?
They think that they are.
Why should they resign?
When they
have, listen, Mr. Mishra.
The real sentiments.
Listen,
let them resign and go for a fresh election.
These
Shiv Sainik selected them.
आपको पता है एक इलेक्शन जीतना कितना कठिन है आज उनके पास. अरे यार कुछ भी मजाक
सर आप मजाक की बात कर रहे हो सर. आप मजाक की बात कर रहे हो सर.
Let's not bring it down to this level.
Shiv Sena, can there be a Shiv Sena without Thackeray?
Who said there is a Shiv Sena without Thackeray?
You tell me, if there is a Shiv Sena without Thackeray, let these people resign and contest on their own.
Sir, rebels are saying that there will be no Shiv Sena, there will be no Thackeray's if Mr. Raut continues the way that he is. आपके पास MLA नहीं रहेगी, पार्टी नहीं रहेगी, कॉर्पोरेटर नहीं रहेंगे, MP नहीं रहेंगे, कोई नहीं रहेगा.
The 40 MLAs with folded hands are saying, requesting Uddhav Thackeray to save Shiv Sena.
Let party decide it. Let party decide it. 40 MLAs. You are talking about 40 people and you are forgetting 40 lakhs of Shiv Sainiks.
Sir, at least they got 1 lakh vote. They are also 40 lakh. They are representing 40 lakh people. What are you talking? अरे सर उन्होंने भी कम से कम लाख सवा लाख वोट लिए हैं. 40 लाख. अच्छा, so their 40 lakh is nothing. अरे कैसी बातें करते हो?
Let them go to their people.
They have gone to their people. Can't you see? Their people are celebrating. Their people are celebrating, Mr. Mishra.
Let them go to their people.
Mr. Krishna, the people that you're talking about are putting up the hoardings today. The more fundamental question though, Sanjay Gupta, is, and again I want to keep going back to what the rebels are saying. We must pay attention to what the rebels are saying, because again, you have Mr. Kesarkar saying that, and it's important because वो suggest कर रहे हैं कि this seems to be an agenda. Sanjay Raut began his agenda of vicious series criticizing the BJP-led union government. Sadly, widening the gap between our two parties was systematically orchestrated. Trying to say यहाँ घर में विभीषण कोई और ही है. ये वो विभीषण है जो कि सेना को खत्म कर रहे हैं. आपके नेम से क्या संजय गुप्ता?
नहीं, इसमें कोई दो राय नहीं है कि जो मुद्दे एकनाथ शिंदे उनके गुट के विधायक उठा रहे हैं उस मुद्दे से हम सहमति रखते हैं, मगर उस तरीके से नहीं, क्योंकि इस तरह की बात आनी चाहिए थी कि उन्होंने उद्धव जी के सामने सबने मिलकर के इस बात को रखा और उनके सबके रखने के बाद उद्धव जी ने नहीं माना. अगर उन्होंने इस बात को उनके सामने रखा होता और रखने के बाद वो नहीं मानते तो अपना रिजाइन देते, रिजाइन देने के बाद अपना विरोध प्रकट करते.
आपने बहुत अच्छी बात कही. अब मैं आगे आपको चिट्ठी पढ़ के बताती हूँ. जब वो बता रहे हैं, जब शिवसेना बीजेपी के बीच में डिफरेंसेस होने शुरू हुए तो चिट्ठी कहती है दैट during this time all of us legislators would attempt to repeatedly bring this to our party's leadership's notice, but in vain. Leadership took no cognizance and the criticism, using very indecent words, continued every day. The kind of cheap and harsh language uttered regularly by our party's leader Sanjay Raut was not used even by the Congress, NCP and other opposition parties of the country. कि यहाँ पर पार्टी को तोड़ने की, पार्टी में दरार बनाने की बीजेपी शिवसेना के बीच में खाई बड़ी करने की कोशिश होती रही और पार्टी की लीडरशिप ने कुछ नहीं किया. संजय गुप्ता.
इसमें कोई दो राय नहीं कि बीजेपी और शिवसेना के बीच में खाई पैदा करने वाले ऐसे कई लोग थे जिन्होंने मामा शकुनी और भीष्म पितामह के रोल को अदा किया है। इसमें कोई दो राय नहीं है। हमारी पार्टी के बहुत से लीडरान इस बात को समय समय पर कहते रहे।
अरे शकुनी और भीष्म पितामह को एक चीज में मत कहिए, भीष्म पितामह का बहुत अलग रोल था। आप थोड़ा सा अपना हिस्ट्री कंफ्यूज कर रहे हैं, पर चलिए कोई बात नहीं, आप शकुनी मामा कह रहे हैं। हाँ ठीक है,
लेकिन भीष्म पितामह देखिए पितामह
But sir, this shows up on the leadership ना, कि पार्टी की लीडरशिप कैसी है।
देखते रहे, कुछ बोले नहीं,
कि आपको समझ में ही नहीं आता कि कौन कृष्ण है और कौन शकुनी है। ये तो आपकी लीडरशिप को इवैल्यूएशन है ना, कि आपको समझ में आना चाहिए कि कौन आपके बीच में खाई क्रिएट कर रहा है, कौन मिसअंडरस्टैंडिंग्स क्रिएट कर रहा है। एंड द ट्रेजेडी है संजय गुप्ता कि आज भी वही लोग हैं जो कि सबसे विजिबल फेस ऑफ द पार्टी हैं, जो कि एडवाइजरी रोल में है, करण वर्मा। Perhaps there could have been a patch up, but now it is at a point of no return.
Padmaja. Oh, absolutely. Padmaja, Sanjay Raut has been the absolute antithesis of what was required for Shiv Sena. You know, when Shiv Sena compromises on its core ideology and forms an alliance with NCP Congress, the last thing you would want is a motor mouth, an inexperienced motor mouth, who is running diktats to people who've risen up through the ranks. Eknath Shinde is a perfect example of someone who's worked his way up. He was a grassroots leader working in Thane, slogging years and years. And do you expect people like Eknath Shinde to take orders from someone like Sanjay Raut, who doesn't know much about the machinations of electoral politics, who has never been amongst the people to win their mandate? This did not augur well with the people who were already suffering from a blow of compromising on their ideology. Then the biggest thing was Uddhav Thackeray had surrounded himself with a coterie, and that has come out time and again. He was absolutely inaccessible. Of course, we know that he had some medical issues, which he's said time and again, but still he was inaccessible because Sanjay Raut and his coterie and his acolytes were all the time they were a layer between Uddhav Thackeray and his people. That's where this kept widening. And today, if you ask me, it is the best thing that can happen if Uddhav Thackeray can resign and go back, solidifying his party. He runs a real risk of losing his party, leave aside this government. So, for me, every day that Uddhav Thackeray clings on to power, he is reducing his political capital in the eyes of the Shiv Sainik.
Kuntal Krishna, the longer you continue with such advisors and with such bad advice, you are actually damaging yourself forever for the future, the Shiv Sena.
Padmaja, if Mr. Shinde and his friends had problem with some advisor, they should have raised this issue sitting in the Mumbai. They should have spoke to their leadership.
अरे सर वहाँ पे वो कह रहे हैं कि तुम्हारे बॉडीज पोस्टमार्टम के लिए भेज देंगे। आप कह रहे हैं हाँ जी मुंबई में आके बात करो, फिर बात करने लायक नहीं रहेंगे ना, फिर वो पोस्टमार्टम हो रहा होगा उनका।
पद्मजा नहीं आप
If somebody sits in Mumbai and says, Kuntal Krishna, come to my studio and debate with me in the studio where your postmortem will be conducted, will you come to the studio and debate? Come on, sir, be reasonable.
BJP का orchestra, no, Padmaja, ये बीजेपी का ऑर्केस्ट्राड एक षड्यंत्र है और जिसमें एकनाथ शिंदे और उनके दोस्त सिर्फ और सिर्फ मोहरे हैं। और ये प्लीज, they should not be hiding behind these words. Mr. Shinde himself said that don't worry, we have got a Mahashakti behind us.
Then in that case, sir, Sanjay Raut has to be the biggest weapon in the arsenal of the BJP, because if anything, Varun Singh, Sanjay Raut is single-handedly going to ensure कि अगर कोई 2 MLA वापस भी आना चाहें, वो डर के मारे नहीं आएंगे, क्योंकि संजय राउत उनको कह देंगे कि भाई आप तो सीधे मोर्चरी में जाएंगे। वरुण
सिंह, let me tell you a very small thing. It would have been such a simple solution. Instead of on day one attacking the rebel MLAs, there has been no opportunity, no effort to pacify them. You look at how Shiv Sena and especially Sanjay Raut has behaved. It is clear even and on your show I told you a few days ago, Uddhav Thackeray had made his mind to resign, and on the day he came for Facebook Live on Wednesday, he delayed it for half an hour only and only because he was pressurized by none other than Mr. Sharad Pawar and Sanjay Raut, the architect of MVA, to not resign and cling to power. Someone, as Karan rightly pointed out, the more Uddhav Thackeray clings to power, the more he will lose his base in Shiv Sena. And I don't know, Mr. Mishra, why he doesn't want to see that so many times. Even Uddhav Thackeray in one of his live admitted that 1 year ago, Eknath Shinde came and told him, the rebel, but that time Shiv-Sena MLAs were unhappy the way things were going on. Had he even course corrected, then things would have been different.
And no course correction even now, Sundar Balakrishnan. No course correction.
See, Padmaja, I just want to tell you, you're talking of who's the real Sena, who's the real Bala Saheb, and all those things, okay? Now, I just want to bring to you two recent incidents.
No, there's only one Bala Saheb. Nobody else is claiming to be Bala Saheb, but go on.
No, both are. See, we are talking of who's the real Sena, right? Are we not discussing that? Okay. Now, when you talk of real Sena, you just take two instances. One, I will tell you of Chhagan Bhujbal, who went away with 18 MLAs, and 12 went against him when they came back here on the floor of the House. Okay, that is one instance. 67% of the MLAs, they voted against him. And MNS, Raj Thackeray, who also claimed to be a real Sena, who's lookalike of Bala Saheb Thackeray, who thought he will become the real Sena. What is the situation of Raj Thackeray today? You know, I know, right? Now, of this 39 MLAs who are talking that they are the real Sena, who are the rebels, okay? What is stopping them? That they come here, form their own party, or go to the governor.
By the way, do you know that since we are talking about Chhagan Bhujbal, today Subhash Sabne, who is also from the Shiv Sena and in the rebel camp, what he said, Mr. Balakrishnan, he actually asked Uddhav Thackeray that how can you sit in the cabinet with the same Chhagan Bhujbal who arrested Bala Saheb Thackeray at one point. And now you're sitting with him in a ministry and you're talking about being Bala Saheb's Sainiks, Bala Saheb's messengers. Chhagan Bhujbal had Bala Saheb arrested. And you're sitting with him in a cabinet meeting, feeling no pain. Then chadhawing phool to Bala Saheb on Dashera.
Padmaja, same question I can ask you. Till yesterday, they were talking of Hardik Patel. What all they were talking? Today
sir,
he is very clean in BJP.
My point
today
is,
he very clean.
My point is, sir, that today you are talking about the very core of the Shiv Sena being destroyed. What the question we are asking is, are a few people who misled the Thackeray family leading to the complete destruction? First you did suicidal alliances and now you have suicidal advice. Even at the point of crisis, you are being guided by suicidal advice. Somebody is angry with you, what do you say? We will beat the hell out of you if you come back. This is like somebody walking out of your house saying, you know, I'm a little upset with you because you're not listening to me. You said, Acha, you are upset. Come back. I will beat the hell out of you once you come back. And you expect there to be a patch up.
I want to ask you one thing. Padmaja, I want to ask you one thing. These rebel MLAs who have gone there with so much of guts, you think they are afraid of this dhamkis? You think they are afraid?
You would be afraid, sir. If your house was being broken into and your offices were being bashed up, even you would be afraid.
There is a big
Today, there is an MLA whose house, and by the way, are you suggesting that the Shiv Sainiks are innocent of vandalism and violence? Mr. Balakrishnan.
What innocent means what? They are, in fact,
you agree that Shiv Sainiks are indulging in violence, right?
Why they have come on?
You agree that Shiv Sainiks are indulging in violence, right?
Yes, I know. Yes, they are doing it. They are doing it. Why not?
And you condone it. And you condone it.
I am saying that, you know, their Shiv Sainik, they are very attached to Shiv Sena. They will if they come on the street. You think something will happen?
Sir, I am very attached to my belongings at my house, but that doesn't mean if somebody tries to rob me, I'll stab them. And then you will say, but you know, the robber came in, so she stabbed them because she's very attached.
To BJP, Padmaja, I'm asking you something happens to BJP. BJP Congress did not come on the street. You tell me, you answer me. You answer
Varun Singh.
So I don't know. I thought with age we get more but here I see someone so senior condoning violence. How can anybody on earth with sane mind can say कि अरे ठीक है ना वो गुस्सा है तो इसके लिए सड़क पे आके लोगों के ऑफिस तोड़ रहे हैं, educational institutions तोड़ रहे हैं. भाई sir, you only mentioned about Chhagan Bhujbal. Poor Chhagan Bhujbal, he had to hide in the washroom to save his life.
No, and leave aside the morality, Sundar Balakrishnan. Leave aside the morality. Fine, they are attached. That's the way they are. How is this a good strategy is what I want to ask you. Politics, let's leave the morality out of politics. How is this a good strategy? That somebody is upset with you, you try and get them back by attacking them. What kind of political advice is this?
One minute, Padmaja. Strategy is now with two people, BJP or the Rebel Sena. Let them come here. Let them come here. Why are they stopping now? Why are they enjoying big parties in Guwahati?
Acha Sundarji, just one small thing. Let me over here give you all a
What is
scoop.
stopping them?
My sources in BJP, my sources have clearly told me that Shinde camp in a day or two are gonna come and they will be submitting their letter to governor, stating that MVA has lost majority. They are doing it. They are coming. Now are you happy? Now will you justify the violence? You will still justify the violence.
I'll tell you 1 minute. Okay, they will come here, right? I will tell you there are two options here. Two options. When they come here, either they will have to go against the Uddhav Sena. They have to vote against Uddhav. In that case, there will be a whip from Uddhav Sena. Shiv Sena, there will be whip, right? In that case, what they will do?
I don't need to teach such a senior person how a legislature party will work. His disqualification has been stopped, so he is still right now the leader of Shiv Sena. That's fine. So he's coming in 2 days. July 11 is still 2 weeks. Don't force such a junior person like me to tell you, sir, how a legislature works. He is the leader of the Shiv Sena's elected MLAs.
Listen to me, Varun.
He will be the
before July 11.
All those going against him might lose, might be disqualified.
Okay, you know, I think you missed the nuance, Mr. Balakrishnan. Today, when Eknath Shinde said this is a victory of the real Sena, because essentially what he is saying is that out of 55, I have 39 people, and by virtue of not being disqualified today by the Supreme Court, he has a majority of the Shiv Senics with him. But that argument we will leave for the time that we come to the bridge of a no trust motion being passed or a vote of no confidence being asked for. The point right now is that is the Shiv Sena, Sanjay Gupta, at a point of no return, और जो एक नाराजगी की बात थी अब वो ब्रेकअप पे पहुंच चुकी है और उसका जिम्मेदार कौन है. और अगर आपको लगता है कि ये सिर्फ अटैचमेंट की बात है, I actually want to play out for you what Subhash Desai says, because Mr. Raut gives a dog whistle, and then there are 30 more intelligent people who want to amplify the message that Sanjay Raut has given. If there is any rebel sitting there thinking, maybe I should go back to the Thakres, this is the message that Subhash Desai gives them.
जैसे कोई ना कोई दिन वो यहाँ मुंबई में आएंगे तो उनके जो साथ में है उसमें से आधे से ज़्यादा जल्दी शिवसेना भवन में आकर के दाखिल हो जाएंगे और बाकी जो है उनको एयरपोर्ट से बाहर निकलने नहीं दिया जाएगा. शिवसेना इतना विशाल संगठन है कि पूरे एयरपोर्ट का घेराव 24 घंटे, 48 घंटे, 72 घंटे, आप बोलो उतने घंटों तक घेराव करके बैठने की क्षमता सिर्फ शिवसेना की.
बताइए संजय गुप्ता जी.
देखिए, शिवसेना के टिकट पर जो विधायक लड़े हैं चुनाव और शिवसेना के टिकट पर ही वो मंत्री भी बने, उनको इतना सम्मान मिला, तो उन्हें इस तरह से बागी बनने से पहले अपना रिजाइन तो देना चाहिए था. क्या पार्टी का या शिव सैनिकों का गुस्सा गलत थोड़ी ना है, ये गुस्सा जायज है उनके प्रति. क्यों? उन्हें पहले रिजाइन देना चाहिए था.
जब शिवसेना ने बीजेपी के साथ अलायंस करके चुनाव लड़ा और फिर एनसीपी के साथ अलायंस किया, क्या उन्होंने अपना रिजाइन दिया एनसीपी से गठबंधन करने से पहले? आपके लॉजिक से तो उनको भी रिजाइन देना चाहिए था और फिर एनसीपी के साथ जाते. आपने तो युति के साथ इलेक्शन लड़ा ना, मैंडेट तो युति के लिए था, फिर आपने रिजाइन क्यों नहीं दिया अपना
2.5 साल का वायदा
अगाड़ी बनाने से पहले?
नहीं तो पहले तो 2 दिन के लिए सरकार देवेंद्र फडणवीस जी ने बनाई थी ना. ये
चलिए, आपके लिए बहुत मुश्किल हो रहा है संजय गुप्ता जी, आपके लिए बहुत मुश्किल हो रहा है इसको कुछ भी डिफेंड करने के लिए. बट द मोर सब्सटैंटिव पार्ट दैट आई वांट टू कम इज दैट Now there are some serious allegations, Kuntal Krishna, that are being raised. And I want to keep going back because here are people who claim that they genuinely wish well for the Shiv Sena, for the party itself. The allegation today being made by the rebel camp is that Sanjay Raut, who hasn't been elected by the people, is set off to finish our party. Sanjay Raut is NCP's blew-out boy. You may succeed in distancing the Shiv Sena from the BJP, but if you're trying to distance the Shiv Sena from Hindutva, how do you expect us to tolerate it? Even for unfortunate parties, that if the party is being run on this Sanjay Raut's advice, that too at the cost of isolating people like us who got elected by people multiple times, what option do we have? Sanjay Raut has committed the heinous crime of distancing Uddhav ji from us. So the leader is living in a bubble and listening to people who have no idea what's going on. And that's how the decline has turned into a complete, disbanding of the party almost. Kuntal Krishna.
Padmaja, this is all excuse note given to these rebel MLAs by BJP, because Uddhav Thackeray himself, in his address to the party and people, he himself said that if they have got anyone has got any problem, please do come to me. Where is someone else coming in between? Where is someone else coming in between? That day when he made an appeal, these rebels who has got such great things to say now, they should have come up. They didn't come up. Now this is all excuse, so please don't give these lame excuses.
Padmaja, whenever there has been a serious divorce of the Shiv Sena from its original plank of Hindutva, it's been Sanjay Raut who has been at the forefront expressing his views and articulating them. He came to the forefront when the lynching of the sadhus in Palghar happened and said there was no communal angle, you are vitiating the environment, none whatsoever. Then in the CAA, when there was a walkout in the Rajya Sabha, it was again Sanjay Raut who said we are not here to give citizenship to Hindus from outside.
Can I come in?
Yes,
so the fact is that Sanjay Raut is a symbol for people, for Shiv Sainiks. Hindutva has been their core ideology.
Padmaja, my friend is right. My friend is right. BJP thinks that Sanjay Raut is the main culprit. So there is today ED summoned him. It is right. Since BJP thinks that Sanjay Raut is the main culprit, so ED summoned him. It is very simple.
Don't bring ED into everything. Talk about your compromise from your core ideology and how Sanjay Raut has aided that.
Why not? Why not? Why not? Why not? Why not? क्या बात है साहब? क्या संयोग है? क्या बात है? एक तरफ आप कह रहे हैं कि संजय राउत सब चीज के लिए जिम्मेदार है और ईडी के भी समन उसी दिन आते हैं. What are you saying, sir? क्या?
Okay, Varun Singh wants to come.
Sorry, it is not a प्रयोग. It has to be a संयोग.
कुछ लोग होते हैं वो एक लाइन था वो आपका साबुन स्लो है क्या? वो I'm like, how many times do we say that the rebels today had been crying out loud, even Uddhav Thackeray admitted that 1 year ago they came and told me that they are unhappy because of them. Even the poor chap, the spokesperson or the leader from Shiv Sena, he is unable to defend. But wow, I'm like, Kuntalji, hats off to you for not even trying to understand that yes, there is a problem. Uddhav Thackeray is a very sensible leader. He wanted to resign, but he is
now. Sir, you are talking about 365 days back event. Sir, you are talking about an event which was a year back. And Uddhav ji made an appeal 3-4 days back. What about that appeal?
Kuntal ji, मैं फोन करता हूँ ना, MLAs available है.
He made an appeal कि if anyone has got any problem, he should come to me.
MLA ना कुंतल जी वो MLAs है ना बेचारे फोन उठा रहे हैं. मैंने कल ही उनसे बात की 2-3 लोगों से. जब मेरे जैसे का फोन उठा सकते हैं तो वो श्योरली उद्धव जी को और आदित्य जी का उठा के बात कर लेंगे.
एक बात बताओ,
कुंतल जी, फेसबुक लाइव में बोलना एक बात है कि आप फेसबुक लाइव में बोल दो कि आओ मुझसे बातें करो और फिर मेरे मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट कहते हैं कि आओगे मुंबई में तो कुटाई होगी, तो आप भी बेवकूफ तो हो नहीं कि कहेंगे जी मेरे को. बट फेसबुक लाइव में बोला था जब पिटाई हो रही होगी तो वहां पे तो कोई नहीं बोलता ना कि बट फेसबुक लाइव में तो आपने बोला था मुझे आके मिलो, आप मेरी पिटाई क्यों कर रहे हो. सर, कोई आपका घर तोड़े जा रहा है तो आप वहां पे फेसबुक लाइव पे सुन करके तो नहीं आओगे ना.
बीजेपी की स्क्रिप्ट में बीजेपी की स्क्रिप्ट में उद्धव जी से बात करना नहीं लिखा है।
बीजेपी की स्क्रिप्ट में घर तोड़ना लिखा है क्या? Okay, we are just getting in news. We're just getting in news. Our colleagues are telling us, that's what sources within the rebel camp are telling them, that it'll be the BJP and the Shiv Sena Shinde camp who are going to make the government together. There will be no merging of the party, but the Shiv Sena Shinde is going to stake claim to the symbol and say, we are the real Shiv Sena. A senior advocate is being consulted even as we speak. That's the big story breaking right now, and it's confirming, in fact, Varun Singh said just a while ago, is that they are going to ask for a floor test. The big breaking on NewsHour agenda. The Shinde camp has consulted a senior advocate, and they are going to ask for a floor test very soon. In the next 48 hours, we could see a big development, and this has happened just after the BJP core committee meeting. So there is going to be no merging of any party in any other party. There is going to be two parties which are going to form the government together. That's the big story that we are breaking. For the time being, though, we wish well to the Shiv Sena. It's a party that has grown over years because of its karyakartas, and it shouldn't be frittered away, the legacy, because of a few. Thanks very much, all gentlemen, for joining me. Today it was a show of strength by the opposition as Yashwant Sinha, their joint presidential candidate, filed his nomination, flanked by NCP chief Sharad Pawar and Congress MP Rahul Gandhi, with the support of 18 parties against NDA's Draupadi Murmu. After filing his papers, Sinha called the presidential poll a battle between the ideology of absolute power and that of freedom, and in the same breath also went on to undermine Draupadi Murmu.
The President of the Republic has the most important duty of advising the government. He depends on the advice of the Council of Ministers. But in turn, it is his right and responsibility to also advise the government. ये बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है कि राष्ट्रपति भवन में उसी तरह का व्यक्ति जाए जो इन फंक्शंस को, इन जिम्मेदारियों को निभा सकेगा। ये हमारे इतिहास में, स्वतंत्र भारत के इतिहास में समय समय पर ऐसा हुआ है जब राष्ट्रपति केवल रबर स्टैम्प बन के रह गए।
Now, despite a show of unity, the numbers are clearly stacked in favor of Draupadi Murmu, and the anti-BJP bloc clearly realizes this, which might be the reason why Sinha supporters seem to have resorted to defaming Draupadi Murmu now.
ये विचारधारा की लड़ाई है, दो अलग अलग विचारधाराओं की लड़ाई है। एक तरफ नफरत और दूसरी तरफ भाईचारा और देश की भावना।
हम लड़ाई नहीं लड़ पाते हैं क्योंकि हमारे सामने यह कह दिया जाता है आपके समाज का राष्ट्रपति तो है और उस राष्ट्रपति ने कलर के बराबर काम नहीं किया।
Presidential election is not an election between two individuals. It is an election between two ideas. One idea is of RSS, the divisive, sectarian, communal, fascist idea of India. On the other hand, the idea of secular democratic parties which want to save our constitution, safeguard our constitution, our democratic polity.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Tuhin Sinha, spokesperson of the BJP, joins us along with senior journalist Harshvardhan Tripathi, Vikram Anar, spokesperson of VCK, Gokul. We also have with us Mr. Tausif Khan. He's leader of the Trinamool Congress, and Khaliqur Rahman, leader of the TRS. I want to start by asking you, Tuhin Sinha, essentially the argument is that on the one hand you have somebody who's been a cabinet minister, somebody who's a seasoned politician. On the other you have a rubber stamp. The country doesn't need a rubber stamp as president.
Well, good evening, Padmaja. There are only two rubber stamps I know. One was Rabri Devi and the other was Dr. Manmohan Singh. That's point number one. Number two, let me take you, back to the equation between this opposition and Yashwant Sinha. In 2002, the Congress party had accused Yashwant Sinha of being a part of the UTI scam and had demanded his resignation. Yashwant Sinha returned the favor in 2004 by calling Manmohan Singh, Dr. Manmohan Singh Shikhandi, and he even, was defiant and continued to justify. So this opposition essentially has no self-dignity. It is backing a person who has called its own ex-Prime Minister Shikhandi. Number 3, the Congress, we know for a fact, has always tried to demean leaders from weaker sections of society. At one point of time, they had a very bitter estrangement with Bala Sahab Ambedkar. Then we know what they did to Babu Jagjeevan Ram, and eventually we have seen what they did to Sitaram Kesri, who was locked in the bathroom so that he could not, file his nomination for the post of president once again.
Okay.
So the Congress essentially cannot come to terms with the fact that a self-made Adivasi woman who has risen from being a corporator to an MLA to a minister in the Odisha government to a governor with an unblemished record can eventually lead the country as a president.
Okay, Mr. Vikramanar, your party claims to stand for the most backward in society, the weakest, the people who've been left behind. And here is an Adivasi lady who has literally worked up from the grassroots being demeaned.
No, even though she is from the Adivasi community, she had been groomed under RSS umbrella. And she had been an RSS person ever since she joined the politics. And I would want to quote some incident. No, let me finish it. I would want to quote an incident which happened in 2nd January of 2006.
So she ceases to be Adivasi because she is from the RSS, or she is not RSS actually, the BJP. So she ceases to be Adivasi.
BJP is just the face of RSS in electoral politics that everybody knows. There is no hiding of the fact.
That doesn't change her caste identity or her struggles.
So what struggle she had done, I'm telling you, let me finish it if you allow me to finish it. On 2nd January,
just a second, did you say what struggles has she done? Sir, she started out as a teacher, then she entered politics at the grassroots, worked her way up, worked in the state government, and now after being a governor, she has reached where she is.
What was the struggle for her people? What was the struggle for the Adivasi people she had done?
What is the struggle that Mr. Yashwant Sinha has done for any people?
No, let me talk about
He was also a politician. So what are the struggles that Mr. Sinha is embodying?
I'll tell you, in 2nd January 2006,
other than his struggles against Mr. Modi.
Tata Steel plant in Kalinganagar, Odisha, the then alliance government of BJD and BJP, they started police firing in which 13 tribals were shot dead. You'll have to notice that 13 tribals were shot dead. Draupadi Murmu, Mrs. Draupadi Murmu was a minister in that government, in that coalition government in Odisha. Did she speak any word against it? Did she raise a protest against it? No. That is a situation of any tribal minister, any tribal MLA, MP in RSS camp.
Okay, Harshvardhan Tripathi, तो वो नाम की आदिवासी हैं. She has presided over a massacre of Adivasis according to Vikraman.
Circus tiger.
Harshvardhan Tripathi, fascist. She's a fascist.
पद्मजा, बड़ा आश्चर्य होता है मुझे कि लोग टीवी की बहस में आते हैं तो तैयारी भी ठीक से करके नहीं आते हैं। द्रौपदी मुर्मू का पूरा जीवन ही आदिवासियों के लिए संघर्ष का भरा रहा है। उनका अपना निजी जीवन भी बहुत संघर्ष से भरा रहा है और वो कोई ऐसा नहीं है कि कोई पद, सत्ता, उसके लोभ में, लालच में वो राजनीति में आ गए। और जब वो राजनीति में आई तो उसके बाद भी एक बार उनको निजी जीवन में ऐसा अवसाद हुआ कि उन्होंने सोचा कि अब राजनीति छोड़ देनी चाहिए। लेकिन वो राजनीति में जब रही तो उन्होंने उच्च मानदंडों का, जिसको हम कहते हैं ना कि कभी उनके जीवन पर कोई घोटाला, कोई गड़बड़ी, कोई किसी तरह का पक्षपात, किसी तरह का भ्रष्टाचार, उसका आरोप नहीं है। और ऐसे लोग जो इस देश में कहते हैं कि हम सरोकारी राजनीति करते हैं, हम आदिवासियों के लिए, सोसाइटी के वीकर सेक्शन के लिए, पुअर्स के लिए, विमेंस के लिए, ऐसे लोगों का चेहरा, और मैं तो उसको कहूंगा जैसे इस देश में सेकुलरिज्म का फ्रॉड है ना, ऐसे ही ये सारे के सारे सरोकारी फ्रॉड हैं। इसीलिए इनको रामनाथ कोविंद के शानदार कार्यकाल के बावजूद वो नहीं लगता कि किस तरह से इस देश में जो सबसे नीचे है, जो सबसे आखिरी पायदान पर है, जिसको महात्मा गांधी कहते थे, डॉक्टर भीमराव अंबेडकर कहते थे, पंडित दीनदयाल उपाध्याय कहते थे, उनको ऊपर लाने की बात होती है और बिना किसी बंदूक की गोली की क्रांति वाली है ये अपने आप स्वतः, जिसको हम कहते हैं ना डेमोक्रेटिक वे में। और अब द्रौपदी मुर्मू शायद इसीलिए इनको नहीं पचता क्योंकि इनको सब कुछ बंदूक की गोली गोली से निकलता हुआ दिखता है। ये लोकतंत्र हत्या से चलाना चाहते हैं, इसलिए इनको ये आदिवासियों की बात ठीक नहीं लग रही।
विक्रमन,
Yeah, see, I want to make a claim that this is just a token, and they are
and just because I remember last time you were very vocal about, you know, how Brahminical customs are the curse of society, although I don't endorse that view at all. How is it that in this presidential election, talking purely about caste, an Adivasi lady is being pitted against an upper caste Brahmin from Bihar, and you've decided to support the latter, Mr. Vikraman? I thought your opinion was that Brahminism was the root of all evil.
Yeah, there is a difference between Brahminism and Brahmins. We are not against Brahmins as people. We are against the Brahminical idea. Draupadi Murmu.
So now Draupadi Murmu becomes Brahminical because she's from the BJP, but Yashwant Sinha is the face of the downtrodden because you are supporting him. Interesting. Caste is also a state of mind, apparently. Yes, go on.
Brahminical. And yeah, I want to quote one thing also. Mr. Ramnath Govind being the president of the Republic of India. Being the president of Republic of India, he was not invited for Ram Janmabhoomi, the Ram temple. They were doing the Bhumi Puja. Even RSS chief was invited. He was not invited.
Harshvardhan, this is such rot WhatsApp. Harshvardhan Tripathi.
टीवी की डिबेट में आने से पहले कुछ पढ़ लिख लेना चाहिए। राष्ट्रपति राम जन्मभूमि या राम मंदिर के निर्माण में कहां जाएंगे, कब जाएंगे, इससे तय होगा क्या? प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया के तौर पर रामनाथ कोविंद ने अपने हर दायित्व का निर्वहन किया, और अगर वो दलित के नाते कह रहे हैं तो जो ट्रस्टी है राम जन्मभूमि के वो भी एक दलित है जिन्होंने पहली ईंट रखी थी। इनको पता ही नहीं है, इनको ये जानकारी ही नहीं है कि एक दलित उस ट्रस्ट का न्यासी है और उसने पहली ईंट रखी है। लेकिन चूंकि इनको अपमानित करना है, मैं बार बार कह रहा हूं ना कि जब तक कोई ऐसी खबर नहीं आए जिसने ब्राह्मणिकल एंगल नहीं खोजे, और सबसे ज्यादा जो वामपंथी पार्टियों में कम्युनिस्ट रहे आइडियोलॉजी के, उन्होंने सबसे ज्यादा ये ब्राह्मणिकल आइडियाज को आगे किया और उसके आधार पर सोसाइटी में डिवीजन किया।
And anyway, I think this is such a pointless argument because the president has subsequently been to Ram Janmabhoomi, he has been to Ayodhya, so making this argument is completely infructuous.
That puja ceremony, did he get the invite?
Okay.
Was he invited? I'm asking.
Okay. Mr. Tausif Ahmed, it's very interesting that we had one of the leaders there say that the RSS is embodied in Draupadi Murmu and the merits of the entire opposition are embodied in Yashwant Sinha. Could you explain how?
See, there is no debate, Padmaja. We have the credential of Mr. Yashwant Sinha, impeccable track record as a minister in Vajpayee cabinet and in other government. And prior to coming to politics, he was also an IS officer. The point that he made is today there's a fight of the ideology of absolute power and that of freedom. Mr. Yashwant Sinha is one who was with BJP and he left BJP when he thought that everything was not going right. On the other hand, we have Ms. Draupadi Murmu. Why BJP has picked Ms. Draupadi Murmu? Please let us understand that this whole talk about welfare and representation of tribal population is only a lip service of BJP. And why I say that? There are elections due in Gujarat, in Rajasthan, in Madhya Pradesh, and in Chhattisgarh. And if we look at the result of 2017 and 2018 election, in tribal population, seats were reserved for 128 seats, and out of which only 35 seats were won by BJP. So it is BJP's political game to reach out to those population with a hope of getting some votes.
So great, they are reaching out to the tribal population. Even if we were to buy your argument, why is it a bad thing to reach out to a population?
If BJP was true, and if they really had a resolve to work for the tribal people, let us take a look at Madhya Pradesh, which has the highest tribal population, and most cases of atrocities against the tribal population happens registered in Madhya Pradesh. So it is
Answer.
only
Tuhin Sinha.
lip service with
This is lip service to upliftment.
There's two things. This government is truly representational. Nobody can deny this. For the first time, we have a law minister, union law minister from Arunachal Pradesh. Is this because elections are going to happen in the northeast? So I don't think where they come with this illogical argument. Number two, I'm quite appalled that somebody should have a problem with Draupadi Murmu ji because of her association with RSS. On the other hand, the BJP, allow me to complete please. We are absolutely proud of that association because at a time, please, I'm making an important point, at a time when you have Adivasi leaders like Hemant Soren who are acting at the behest of the conversion lobby, and who are spreading falsehoods that Adivasis were never a part of the Hindu Samaj, it is all the more important that an Adivasi with RSS association should be brought forward, because that RSS association makes her truly nationalist.
Justify the
so
cause.
all this argument is absolutely illogical. The opposition argument is simply cannot come to terms with the fact that we are empowering the Adivasi population, which they could never do.
Yes.
I have a simple question, Padmaja.
Yes, go on, Tawfiq Ahmed.
If Yashwant Sinha is elected as the president, put your hand on heart and answer this question. Can Yashwant Sinha be used by BJP as a rubber stamp president? No. But if they have
already mentioned
on the post of president,
No, I'm sorry. Why are you making such a presumption? No, just a second. This is very problematic. What makes you think, Mr. Ahmed, that Draupadi Murmu will be a rubber stamp? Why? Because she's a woman? Or because she's an Adivasi? Or she's not an IS officer? Why are you assuming she will be a rubber stamp? No, why are you assuming she will be a rubber stamp? She doesn't have brains? Because she's not high-flying? Because she doesn't live in Delhi? Why are you assuming she would be a rubber stamp? Out of curiosity.
The Prime Minister did not even allow her to hand over the nomination paper. Do you think that Prime Minister will allow Ms. Murmu to
Yes,
act
I think so. Yes, I think so. Because I think that she's a very accomplished lady who has a brain. Why are you dismissing her so patronizingly as a rubber stamp? What exactly has she done for you to reach a conclusion that she is nothing more than a rubber stamp? Give me one reason.
When Ms. Pratibha Patil, former Lady President of India, went to file her nomination test, she handed over the paper to her son. The Congress leadership allowed her to do that. But
Okay. हर्षवर्धन त्रिपाठी, so apparently द्रौपदी मुर्मू is a rubber stamp क्योंकि उन्होंने अपना पेपर अपने हाथ से नहीं दिया नॉमिनेशन भरते वक्त, as opposed to a प्रतिभा पाटिल. Hence proven कि वो कभी कोई पेपर अपने हाथ से नहीं देंगी. हर्षवर्धन त्रिपाठी.
पद्मजा, मुझे सचमुच आश्चर्य हो रहा है और मुझे लग रहा है कि इस तरह की बहस में इनसे हम क्या बात करेंगे, जिस महिला का 2 दशक से ज्यादा का अपना राजनीतिक करियर है, जो महिला जिसकी पढ़ाई की भी कोई ऐसा नहीं है कि वो बिना पढ़ी लिखी महिला है उस आधार पर आपने टिप्पणी कर दी, महिला है इसलिए आपने टिप्पणी कर दी, आदिवासी है इसलिए आपने टिप्पणी कर दी, वो लगातार जनप्रतिनिधि के तौर पर बहुत नीचे लेवल से, ब्लॉक लेवल से, डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल से और स्टेट की मिनिस्टर से और उसके बाद झारखंड के गवर्नर से और फिर वो प्रेसिडेंट की कुर्सी पर जा रहे हैं और उनको 2007 में ओडिशा के बेस्ट एमएलए का अवार्ड मिला हुआ है. इसके अलावा वो श्री अरविंदो इंटीग्रल एजुकेशन सेंटर में 1994 में वो पढ़ा चुकी है टीचर के तौर पर. और ऐसी महिला के बारे में ये इस तरह की टिप्पणी कर रहे हैं, ये बहुत शर्मनाक है. और अगर सिर्फ इस देश में आईएएस होना या फिर ऐसे लोगों का, और कमाल की बात यह है कि राष्ट्रीय स्वयंसेवक संघ से जुड़ाओ. राष्ट्रीय स्वयंसेवक संघ अगर देश के हर उस इलाके में काम करता है जहां सरकारें नहीं पहुंच पाती, लोग नहीं पहुंच पाते, कोई वहां काम करने को तैयार नहीं है और कोई एक होल टाइम लाइफ टाइम प्रचारक जाता है, वो काम करता है और अगर वो लोगों को जोड़ रहा है, लोगों का अपलिफ्टमेंट कर रहा है, लोगों की लाइफस्टाइल बदल दे रहा है, तो उसमें भी इनको मुश्किल है. इसलिए मैं कह रहा हूं कि ये फर्जी सरोकारी है. ये लोग बांटना चाहते हैं और जितने एलीट लोग हैं उन सबको ये कष्ट है कि क्यों एक आदिवासी, क्यों एक दलित, क्यों एक टीचर सेक्शन का व्यक्ति वहां पहुंचता है.
खलीकुर रहमान,
यशवंत सिन्हा जैसा एलीट चाहिए.
It's elitism. It's elitism, not anything else.
Can you come again?
Yes, this is elitism. This reeks of elitism to say, oh, she will be a rubber stamp just because she happens to be from a tribal background.
See, actually, here, I mean, as for our presidential India is concerned, in fact, we have absolutely no personal grievance against her. But it is the BJP's double standard, actually, which, makes us to think why BJP is, playing the politics of the tokenism and then has chosen a
But sir, again, this is so patronizing. Why are you assuming she's a token? Because you have just assumed that she will not take any decision.
I'm not saying that. Let me complete that. I'm not saying that. What I'm trying to tell you is, because I'll just give you an example of our state only, because when our state, that is Telangana, attained the statehood, after that, the tribal population in our state went up. Then we passed a resolution in the state assembly, then we sent it to the central government to increase the reservation for the tribal. And then we also demanded the tribal university, which was in fact kept in the cold storage. The central government has not taken any decision. And apart from that, there have been atrocities on the tribals, as my learned friend was saying in Madhya Pradesh and all, at that point of time.
So, sir, if you are such a votary of tribal rights, why are you not supporting Draupadi Murmu?
So, then, see, as far as Yashwant Sinha is concerned, Yashwant Sinha's profile, if you look at it, he has an impeccable, character, the illustrious...
Are you saying Draupadi Murmu has a bad character?
I'm not saying that.
Then?
Did I say? Because I'm saying that why are we supporting Yashwantji actually? So that is the reason.
But you just said that you are a votary for tribal rights, so why are you not supporting her instead of Yashwant Sinha? What is it that puts Yashwant Sinha here as opposed to her?
See, the presidential election is a very important election, and it is between the two ideologies in our country. So that will have to, in fact...
so you realize that you're saying the ideology you are opposing is trying to put a woman from a tribal background into the highest office of our country.
Don't try to give a different narrative to this. Actually,
there is no narrative. This is her existence. This is literally who she is.
She is backed by an ideology which is opposed by all of us actually.
So you are saying that the ideology she is backed by is elevating a woman from an Adivasi background to the highest office. That is an ideology we all must have, so that the last person in queue is in the highest office. You're actually praising the ideology backing her.
I think you're trying to put the wrong words into everyone's mouth.
I'm putting no words in anyone's mouth. Mr. Vikraman wants to come in, then Harshvardhan ji, I'll come back to you, and Tuhin Sinha. Yes, Mr. Vikraman.
Yeah, why she is rubber stamp? Because we have a precedent. We have what she has done already. In 2006, there was an uprising of tribals against the Tata Steel plant, and 13 tribals were shot dead. She was being the member of Legislative Assembly. She did not even protest, did not even raise her voice. She was part of the coalition government. She should have raised her voice. She did not do that. So even though, when she was being a minister, she could not raise her voice. Being the president, the real rubber stamp of this country, on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers, only the president can act.
So, just a second, since you keep talking about a hateful ideology, sir, Yashwant Sinha, when his entry happened in the BJP, it was hailed as the biggest gift to the BJP. He comes from the Janasangh. He is literally a part of the very ideology that you're calling the worst ideology in the planet. But now he's been put in the secular washing machine, and now he's suddenly secular. He's not hateful anymore.
He is not part of that ideology anymore. He had
he's not.
Of BJP. Yes, he had come out of BJP. And
because when he fell out with Mr. Modi, suddenly he changed. He's like, oh my God, I have seen the light. The secular sun is shining.
He will act independently. He'll act independently. He's not part of RSS or BJP camp anymore. He's out of it. He has joined the secular forces. No man can be a thief until his death. He can change also. There's a point for reformation. Yes.
Oh, he's a reformed secular. That's nice to know. All right. So we have a reformed secular and a lady from a tribal background who has already been branded a rubber stamp by most, fighting for the highest office in our country. Let's hope that the best person wins. We'll be keeping a close eye. Thanks very much in the meantime, all gentlemen, for joining us.
The News Hour at 10. We'll be right back after the break.
Who is
हमारे साथियों के साथ बातचीत करेंगे ऐसे क्यों हुआ और हुआ तो कैसे करेक्ट एक्शन ले सकते हैं इस पर हम ध्यान देंगे.
We are getting back-to-back news breaks right here on Times Now with the NCP Supremo Sharad Pawar is said to be in a huddle. He is the one who is leading the MVA in a way, and what is being said that his role remains crucial to keep the flock together. When it comes to the NCP leaders, the Shiv Sena leaders.
News Hour at 10. The News Hour at 10. We'll be right back after the break.
I've just used a figurative and also with the Congress party. Let me straight away go across to Madhav Das Gopalakrishnan joining us. Madhav Das, the role of Sharad Pawar remains all the more crucial because we are looking at defections that are happening probably within the Shiv Sena and the Congress.
The News Hour at 10.
Admiral Hari Kumar, thank you.
Madhav, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm at Sharad Pawar's residence here. Several top opposition leaders are currently at his residence. We have left leaders Sitaram Yechury and D. Raja who are present over here. From the side of the Congress, Mallikarjun Kharge as well as Jairam Ramesh present here as well. And of course his own party's senior leader Praful Patel, who is also here at the residence of Sharad Pawar. Now what it appears is that we were earlier expecting that there would be post 2 o'clock a meeting of opposition leaders inside the parliament. That is what was scheduled as of yesterday, as of this morning. But now, given the sudden developments in Maharashtra, it appears that Mr. Pawar is consulting with all of the opposition parties, and it appears that this meeting could be, what he has to say as far as the opposition presidential candidate is concerned. The name of Yashwant Sinha was proposed at yesterday's meeting, is what sources have indicated to us. And now, of course, with Yashwant Sinha himself tweeting that he would want to work for a larger cause of the nation, for opposition unity, is what we understand, is the meaning of that. And therefore, in fact, the name of Yashwant Sinha being proposed, something that perhaps the TMC also might not have objection to, given that Yashwant Sinha has been a vice president of Trinamool Congress. So how things transpire at this meeting remains to be seen. But in the midst of this crisis, Sharad Pawar, of course, was in the national capital to actually host and invite all political parties for that all-important opposition meeting. But it does seem that opposition leaders who met yesterday, and now, of course, another meeting that is currently underway to decide on what the opposition strategy as far as the presidential candidate is concerned.
Now, Ashok Chavan, the Congress leader, is chairing an emergency meet of the Congress camp. Like I said, the top brass of the Congress, the Shiv Sena, the NCP, all in a hurdle now, in a damage control mode as well. Sanjay Raut claims they are in touch with Eknath Shinde. So does Nana Patole of the Congress. And now there's an emergency meeting taking place as well. Let's listen in.
This may not be any reason for any worry for us.
Sir, after the MLC poll results, you also said that this should be looked after and looked upon very seriously. How does it look for the Maharashtra government now?
As regards cross-voting of any party is concerned, we should introspect and see how the things can be appropriately settled.
Sir, the Member of Parliament from MVA, Sanjay Raut, also stated that there is a conspiracy to topple the Thackeray government.
See, BJP is making these type of efforts in every state wherever Congress is ruled.
Faster adapt हो जाता है टेक्नोलॉजी के साथ, तो हमें ये टेक्नोलॉजी का टैलेंट पूल भी बढ़ जाएगा. So this scheme, many people are saying कि ये जल्दीबाजी में हो गया, etc. But let me tell you, कि मैं इस स्कीम से करीब.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching News Now Overnight with me, Priya Behel. These are the top stories we are tracking at this hour. Supreme Court extends the time for Eknath Shinde and other rebel MLAs to file written response to Deputy Speaker's disqualification notice till July 12th. Victory of Bala Sahib's Hindutva, says Shinde after Supreme Court. So do posters in support of Sena man holding the flag of rebellion against Uddhav Thackeray. Maharashtra government ordered to ensure security for all Shinde camp MLAs and their families after rebels cite threat to life and property by Sena functionaries. State assures compliance, yet incidents of vandalism continue. Enforcement Directorate summons Shiv Sena MP Sanjay Raut on June 28 in case related to Patra Chaul project. Raut calls it a conspiracy to stop him from fighting Sena's political opponents at time of crisis, seeks more time. Playing it safe so far, BJP swings into action now, tells workers to be on standby. Maharashtra Core Committee says will decide on the role depending on situation in coming days.
कॉन्फिडेंस जीत की तो पूरी है और प्यार भी पूरा है. जो दगेबाजी करते हैं वो कभी जीतते नहीं है, जो भाग के जाते हैं वो कभी जीतते नहीं है.
Back-to-back strategic setbacks and looming no-trust vote. Team Uddhav, however, puts up a brave face. Aditya Thackeray says traitors can never emerge victorious, but is his confidence misplaced? Opposition is out in full force as Yashwant Sinha files nomination for presidential polls. His supporting parties, however, resort to maligning NDA candidate Draupadi Murmu, call her a rubber stamp representing communal forces. Fact-checking outlet Alt News' co-founder Mohammad Zubair arrested for allegedly hurting religious sentiments. Opposition calls it an assault on truth. Prime Minister Narendra Modi rubs his shoulders with top world leaders and shake hands as an equal partner at G7 summit in Germany. Pull aside by Macron and Biden steals the show. And latest developments coming in from Maharashtra. There are contours that seem to be emerging of what new political alliances in Maharashtra are going to be amidst the churn that is currently happening. Sources are telling Times Now that BJP and Shinde Sena will stake claim to power. However, there will not be a merger of Shinde Sena with the BJP. For more details on this, we are now joined by Gaurav. Gaurav, over to you. What are you learning about this blueprint to power, especially after the core committee meeting of the BJP today?
Especially all the updates are coming from the BJP sources. The BJP sources has claimed that the BJP and the Shinde faction will form the government and they will claim the government in front of the governor. Especially the Shinde faction will claim for the original Shiv Sena party in front of Election Commission of India.
तो गौरव, ये जो नया गठबंधन आएगा, इसके नेता कौन होंगे? क्या एकनाथ शिंदे इसको लीड करेंगे या देवेंद्र फडणवीस, जो कि अभी तक पीछे से बिहाइंड द सीन से ही काम कर रहे हैं, सामने आकर उन्होंने कुछ बोला नहीं है, ऐसी कुछ चर्चा हुई है?
बिल्कुल ये चर्चा हुई है. जो बीजेपी सोर्सेज ने कहा है, टॉप बीजेपी सोर्स ने, कि देवेंद्र फडणवीस ही जो हैं वो सीएम के दावेदार होंगे और साथ ही साथ एकनाथ शिंदे को जो है वो डिप्टी चीफ मिनिस्टर का जो है जो रोल है वो ऑफर किया जाएगा. और इस बात की भी तैयारी हो रही है कि आने वाले समय में किस तरीके से फ्लोर टेस्ट के लिए जो है वो राज्यपाल से डिमांड की जा सकती है. आने वाले दिनों में 2-3 दिनों में इसको लेकर एक लेटर जो है वो गवर्नर को लिखा जा सकता है और इसके लिए बाकायदा लीगल टीम से जो है वो मशवरा चल रहा है. और शिंदे ग्रुप और साथ ही साथ बीजेपी के टॉप लीडरशिप इंक्लूडिंग देवेंद्र फडणवीस लगातार आपस में संपर्क में है
और दोनों ही आपस में बातचीत कर रहे हैं।
आज राउंड 1 जो था लीगल बैटल का वो तो शिंदे टीम के फेवर में गया है और जाहिर सी बात है कि इसी वजह से देयर कॉन्फिडेंस इज नाउ एट इट्स पीक. दे आर नाउ मलिंग टू swoop in and go for a floor test. Is it going to be end game? Uddhav, one remains to watch out for that. Thank you, Gaurav, for joining us. Today, earlier, in a big relief for the Shinde camp MLAs, the Supreme Court ordered status quo on the disqualification notice till the next date of hearing in the matter. What this means is that the Deputy Speaker will not be able to proceed with the disqualification process at least till the 12th of July. The next hearing is going to take place on the 11th. The earlier deadline, remember, was 5:30 p.m. today, against which there was a petition that was filed in the Supreme Court.
Its advantage Shinde camp after round 1 of legal fight. The Sena versus Sena Mahasangram reached the Supreme Court on Monday, where the court ordered status quo on the disqualification notice till July 11th. This essentially means that the Deputy Speaker won't be able to proceed with the disqualification proceedings against the Shinde camp MLAs till the next date of hearing on July 11th. The deadline for 16 rebel MLAs to file a response has also been extended till 5:30 p.m. on July 12, an additional window of 14 days. The court also asked the Maharashtra government to ensure protection of rebel MLAs and their families.
Time to file our reply to the notice of the Deputy Speaker for our disqualification is extended till the 12th of July. Secondly, has directed and recorded the undertaking of the state government that all protection to life and liberty of these 39 MLAs as also their family members shall be extended by the state government.
The interim order came after heated exchange in the court. The rebel camp argued that the Deputy Speaker can't decide on the disqualification plea as a no-confidence motion against him had already been moved. The Shinde camp also cited the Nabam Rabia judgment in the top court. The verdict states that the Speaker must refrain from adjudicating disqualification plea when his own position is under challenge. The Uddhav camp countered the petitioners, contending that courts can't intervene in the matter till Speaker decides the issue. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, appearing for the Uddhav faction, argued that there's not a single case in India, barring the Rajasthan case, where my lords have interdicted. Celebrations began at Shinde House after the court's order, with Shinde's son Shrikant Shinde, who is also an MP, leading supporters. Even as the numbers are on Shinde's side, the Uddhav camp continues to exude confidence that they'll win if a floor test is to happen.
कॉन्फिडेंस जीत की तो पूरी है और प्यार भी पूरा है. जो दगेबाजी करते हैं वो कभी जीतते नहीं है, जो भाग के जाते हैं वो कभी जीतते नहीं है. फ्लोर टेस्ट से मुझे सबसे बड़ी टेस्ट यही है, अगर जो भी बागी है, जो भाग के गए हैं, जो खुद को रिबेलियन कह रहे हैं, रिबेलियन करना होता तो यहाँ हिम्मत से करते, राजीनामा देते, रिजाइन करते और सामने चुनाव के लिए खड़े रहते. मेरी बात पूरी होगी. दूसरी फ्लोर टेस्ट यही होगी कि मेरे सामने बैठे आंखों में आंखें डाल के बोले कि हमने क्या गलत किया.
It's a big relief for the Shinde camp for now, but this battle for Sena legacy is far from over. Bureau Report, Times Now.
And this battle for Sena legacy is now spilling onto the streets, also asserting itself in the form of posters that have now emerged across the streets, not just in Maharashtra, also in Guwahati. Poster of Eknath Shinde taking claim on the Hindutva politics that has been the bedrock of Shiv Sena so far have been put up. My colleague gets us this report.
With more than 2/3 MLAs of Shiv Sena camping here in Guwahati, Assam, and add to that independent MLAs adding strength to the Eknath Shinde camp, many say Guwahati has almost become the political capital of Maharashtra. The poster war which has erupted in Maharashtra has reached Guwahati, and that's the point in proof. First poster of Eknath Shinde here in Guwahati. It's a huge poster, larger than life, which reads, "Garv se kaha, hum Hindu hai, Shinde sahab, hum aapke saath hai." Hashtag Hindutva forever. And the poster also has the political guru of Eknath Shinde and the ideological inspiration of Shiv Sena, Bala Saheb Thackeray, indicating that Eknath Shinde is the true custodian of Shiv Sena. Interestingly, this poster has come up here in Guwahati on the day when Supreme Court has given this interim order in a way facilitating an elbow room to the Eknath Shinde camp MLAs. The BJP so far has denied any kind of link with the political face-off between Eknath Shinde and Uddhav Thackeray. We have to wait and see how would Eknath Shinde respond to it.
While one awaits how Eknath Shinde will respond to the developments, we can clearly see how Shiv Sainiks who are backing Uddhav are responding to it. Rattled and left helpless by the massive rebellion in Sena ranks engineered by Eknath Shinde, Shiv Sainiks have now resorted to dhamki and danga in desperate attempts to regain control of the party and power. Shiv Sainiks have been on a rampage against the rebel MLAs and are resorting to attacks, vandalism and violent protests. This is happening despite state government assuring the centre of adequate measures to contain law and order situation and deployment of central security forces. Today, in Maharashtra's Gondia, Shiv Sena workers vandalized office of an independent MLA who's supporting the rebel camp in the presence of CRPF personnel. The goons of Sena did not even deter from heckling and scuffling with the armed forces. Even the Supreme Court, while giving the big relief to Eknath Shinde's rebel camp, pulled up Uddhav government and asked it to assure security for all the rebel MLAs as well as their families. The Standing Council of Maharashtra government informed the top court that adequate steps have already been taken and state government will further ensure that no harm is caused to the life, liberty or property of MLAs. However, will Shiv Sena cadre be controlled if the stalwart party leaders continue to issue provocative statements like taking rebel MLAs hostage at Mumbai airport once they return?
जैसे कोई ना कोई दिन वो यहाँ मुंबई में आएंगे तो उनके जो साथ में है उसमें से आधे से ज़्यादा जल्दी शिवसेना भवन में आकर के दाखिल हो जाएंगे और बाकी जो है उनको एयरपोर्ट से बाहर निकलने नहीं दिया जाएगा। शिवसेना इतना विशाल संगठन है कि पूरे एयरपोर्ट का घेराव 24 घंटे, 48 घंटे, 72 घंटे, आप बोलो उतने घंटों तक घेराव करके बैठने की क्षमता सिर्फ शिवसेना की।
This is not the first time that implicit threats of violence to party MLAs who have joined Shinde's rebel camp have been issued. Earlier and on multiple occasions that too, Sanjay Rawat has threatened the rebel MLAs and said that Sena workers are going to fight them once they return. There was also a reference to bodies being sent to postmortem.
या 40 आमदारांच्या बॉड्या इथे येतील त्यांना डायरेक्ट सभागृहात पोस्टमार्टम मध्ये पाठवू।
रास्ते की लड़ाई रास्ते पर सड़क पर हो सकती है, हो जाएगी। अब तक शिवसैनिक सड़क पर नहीं उतरे, चाहे कितने भी लोगों को आप खरीद लो, दबाव डालो, लेकिन कानून की लड़ाई, कागज की लड़ाई और सड़क की लड़ाई दोनों में हम जीत जाएंगे।
जिसको हमारा सामना करना है मुंबई में आ सकते हैं, पूरी तैयारी है, आप आइए, अब हमारा चैलेंज।
Now, as the fight to finish intensifies in Maharashtra, one of Uddhav's most trusted lieutenants and troubleshooter-in-chief, Sanjay Rawat, finds himself in the ED net Yet again, the central agency has summoned him in connection with the Patra Chaul land scam case. Sanjay Raut, who's been quite vocal in his attacks on the Shinde camp, had recently dared the rebel MLAs housed in Guwahati to come to Mumbai if they have the courage to do so. He even sent out a strong warning saying that one who betrays Bala Sahib is going to be finished and that the rebels are nothing but living corpses. However, he has a message for the Enforcement Directorate as well. Challenging the agency to arrest him, Sanjay Raut attacked the centre, saying that he will not take the Guwahati route even if he is beheaded. He is also likely to seek exemption from appearing tomorrow before the ED. He has said that he needs more time because there is a rally that he is supposed to attend.
जिस तरह की राजनीतिक हलचल मुंबई में चल रही है, महाराष्ट्र में, देश में चल रही है, तो मुझे पूरा अंदेशा था कि मेरे बारे में मुझे रोकने के लिए, शिवसेना को रोकने के लिए कुछ लोग इकट्ठा आएंगे महाराष्ट्र के खिलाफ और मुझे और मेरे कोई साथी हुए उनको तकलीफ देंगे। लेकिन चाहे आप मुझे कितनी भी तकलीफ दीजिए, मुझे फांसी पर चढ़ाइए, मेरी गर्दन काट लीजिए, मैं गुवाहाटी में जाने वाला नहीं। जो शिवसेना है उनके साथ खड़ा रहूँगा और उनकी साख बचाने के लिए आखिरी सांस तक मैं लड़ता रहूँगा। और भी सभाएं मैंने शेड्यूल की है पार्टी की तरफ से, उसके बाद मैं ईडी से टाइम ले लूँगा, लेकिन ज़रूर मैं ईडी के दफ्तर में जाऊँगा।
While Sanjay Raut is all set to skip those summons, the noose will be tightening around him, which has led to his alliance partners as well as other parties from the opposition seeing red, questioning the timing. Aditya Thackeray even fired a circus jibe at the centre.
ईडी ने समन किया है संजय राउत को भी, आप लोग क्या इसको राजनीति के हिसाब से देख रहे हैं?
नहीं, ये राजनीति नहीं, ये तो भी सर्कस बन गई है।
इंजीनियर किया गया है, ये दिल्ली से एजेंसी का इस्तेमाल करके हुआ है, उसमें कोई आश्चर्य की बात नहीं है।
आज जे कथा बोलबे सत्य कथा तार बिरुद्धे नय सीबीआई नय ईडी। आज के तो देखलाम महाराष्ट्रेও शिवसेनार एकজন নেতার নামে সমস্ত প্রপার্টি অ্যাটাচ করে দিয়েছে ईडीতে। আরে এইভাবে দেশ চলে? नहीं भावे गणतंत्र चले।
मेरा ख्याल है कि ईडी का इस वक्त उनको नोटिस देना या उनको सम्मन करना ये जाहिर करता है कि वो जो कुछ महाराष्ट्र में हो रहा है उसमें भारतीय जनता पार्टी चाहती है कि किसी तरह शिवसेना के जो का नेतृत्व है उसको कमज़ोर किया जाए।
Seems to be par for course now. It's very predictable, but he is a courageous leader, and he will give the legal, whatever redressal is available, he will use those means and give the right reply.
The BJP, on the other hand, is maintaining that it is only a matter of process and not an attack on any political party.
Well, it's not attacking the political opponent. If that had been the case, then they could have gone to the court since Mr. Raut's properties were attached earlier. And then they are not going to move to the court to get those property detached. It means the case is proceeding in the right direction and they need to answer the questions. And then whether it's ED or whether it's other agencies or income tax, if someone is at fault, then he need to answer, then giving it a political color. And if I go by their definition, then ED and income tax or CBI or any other government agency will never able to work, because there is some election or there is some political turmoil happening. That should not hamper the work of the agencies which are working in the right direction.
And another story that has created a lot of controversy, the co-founder of fact-checking website Alt News, Mohammad Zubair, was arrested earlier today by the Delhi police. The charges against him are of hurting religious sentiments and trying to promote enmity. He's been accused of posting a questionable image to deliberately insult the god of a particular religion. These are the charges that have been slapped against him by the Delhi police. It includes tweeting an image to insult god of one religion, a post that has possible ramifications on communal harmony, subsequent tweets that led to a series of derogatory comments, conduct during probe, warranting a custodial questioning. There are developments coming in on this story because Zubair has also been produced in court. My colleague Priyank, who broke this story for us, is now joining us on the broadcast. Priyank, what really is the way going ahead for Zubair?
Certainly tough, Priya, because Zubair will be subject to custodial interrogation because the Delhi police, which has produced him before the duty magistrate's residence, has also sought a police remand so that he can be questioned. What Delhi police says that this case pertains to a tweet which was referred to the Delhi police on social media platform Twitter in the month of June 2022. And when Delhi police was alerted by this Twitter handle that